Alright, I think we're all set. Let's see. Howdy, Xavier. Good to see you in the chat. Already becoming a lazy reaction streamer. Shame on you, Loki. Oh, shame on me. Hey, I am good to see you. Can't wait for Loki to run out of his reaction content, only to go react to his past streams for more content. Yep, we're gonna eventually just start the recycle game. We're at that stage of selling out, chat. Oy, oy, oy. Alright, so today we want to test out some cool new little things that I got going for us here. One is the fact that I got myself my browser thing set up, but I also set up a mini browser thing. So that way I could just have this playing in the corner here while I play games like Subnautica. So that's cool. So I only have one question, chat. Like, do you want me to have it here or down here? Like, where would you like me to put the screen when we're watching stuff like this in the background? Again, the point is this so that way you guys can actually see, you know, the video and stuff while I'm also still being able to see me play. So, where do you think it would be the least intrusive for you guys, or where you would be most comfortable watching? He's gonna react to his Dark Souls 1 run through before finishing it. Honestly, that could be it. It's a little robotic. Xavier, you said that last time, and then everyone thought that my voice was worse until I put the filter back on. So, it's really hard to judge with you guys now. Okay, so here is without the filter. This is just the existing mic. Up right, so you like it up here? Top right? Okay, so we'll put it here then. Gotcha, we'll lock that there. Can I still send in suggestions? Sure, no, Bray. We'll see how many we get through today, though. Again, this is gonna be an experiment. I expect there's always gonna be, like, you know, problems and things. For now, I want to start at normal speed because I don't know how much I'm gonna be able to process, you know, the video while playing the game casually while also trying to keep track of chat. That's a lot for my brain to actually have to go through, so I think we're going to keep it on slow, but I would like to get to 1.5 or 2 times speed if necessary, just for my convenience. This sounds better, actually. Okay, then I'm going to assume we're turning the filters off. Okay. Because last time I had to turn them on because everyone thought it was sounding awful. Again, it's, this would be how I would be, this is me with my proper head orientation and stuff, so this would be how I would normally be talking or whatever with you guys while I was been playing. So that's what you guys need to keep in mind. And this would be what it sounds like with the filter on. So you guys got to keep that all in mind. Alright, so which do you prefer? No filter or filter? Please decide. Oh, also, before I forget, because we're doing 4K streaming now, there is going to be like a 15-second delay from what I've timed on anything I say. So if I say something, you guys are going to see it 15 seconds later from when I actually said it. It sounds normal now. Well, normal now is with the filter. I'm getting mixed messages. Oh my god. Alright, so I guess I'm gonna keep the filter on. Alright. Alright. Alright, if we're sounding good, then let's get to the actual main content here. First, let me actually get into the game. Make sure that we haven't somehow reset all my progress again. I went into no cost mode and just quickly built everything that we were basically missing. The filter sounds worse. Alright, I'm turning off filter then. I don't want to hear anything about how I'm too quiet or it's blah blah blah. Like, this is it. No filter. There we go. Filter is now off. Alright. Alright. Alright, so we're in-game. Looking good. Everything's here, no problems. Not causing random beeping shutdown phenomena. Because I decided I would keep a browser open. Oh, 1 second. Looks like I got a call, chat, so 1 moment before we do that. Okay, okay, good. All set up. Oh. Alrighty, now we are all there. Well, that's a noise. Alright, so what do I need to do? Oh yeah, I also moved the, I moved the, what's it called? The scanner room over to that side. Oh, so I guess what my goal is, I should be trying to grab myself as much, we have titanium here, right? Yeah, I have already plenty of titanium. Alright, so let's go back to what we were doing and try to get as much glass as we can for the island and stuff. And in the meantime, while we're doing all that boring, busy work... is it possible just the size of the screen of the video, in my opinion, might be too big? You think this is too big? I mean, I don't think it's a problem if I can adjust it. I should be able to do that well enough. But you guys think this is too big? Because, again, obviously, I want you guys to be able to, you know, see a good amount of the gameplay or whatever, so it's not just, you know, the video or whatever. You guys can watch a YouTube video yourselves, but... I also don't want it to be where you guys can't see what's actually happening. He finally got the glass. Yeah, we're getting the glass. Because I can make it, let's see. I can make it... I can make it this. Is that acceptable? I personally think it's fine, but I don't really mind. Yeah, I thought it was a good. I thought I picked a good medium ground, you know. So it takes up about a quarter of the screen, right? Same. All right, we'll keep it at this then for now. But if you guys find that it's too distracting or we find some issues or whatever, sure, I'll shrink it. But I was okay with having it like this. Think it's better in my opinion. All right, well, for now, majority rules, we're going to keep it at the normal side if you guys don't care, because I prefer it at this size. But if you guys like change your mind or somewhere down the line we see some like major clear issue with having it in this corner, at least at this size, then yeah, I have no problem with like having it or, you know, like reducing it at least by a decent amount. Alright, now let's test this. What is this video I'm watching? There's something about America. Also, tell me about volumes and stuff. If the game sounds too loud, I sound too loud, the video sounds too loud, just so we can... Obviously, the tier should be, I should be able to talk over the video, and the video should be able to talk over the game. So...
Hear me, demigods, my children beloved.
Alright.
Make of thyselves that which ye desire. Be it a lord, be it a god.
And then she said the ancient phrase.
But should ye fail to become aught at all, ye will be forsaken, amounting only to sacrifices.
Yep. There we go.
Alright, welcome back to 100 Madman. I hope everybody's doing well. Today we're going to do a little bit
Okay,
more of a rambly rant style video, but this time on the schemes of Queen Marika. So I won't spend too much time retreading old ground. I mean, we all know who Queen Marika is. She's of the Newman race, or as the Hornsent call them, the Shaman. They're said to be the descendants of people from another world, and that they're rarely born and long-lived. And back when the Hornsent were in charge, they discovered that the Shaman had this unique property to them that when you cut them up, their flesh, it actually is like a bit of glue, sort of. It melds really well with the flesh of other people. And then the Hornsent, they had this bright idea to stuff them all in these jars and use this jar magic to turn them into the first living jars.
Okay.
This eventually got out of hand to the point where the Hornsent would, well, for lack of a better term, genocide most of the shaman population, at least in the lands that would become known as the Shadowland.
I mean, it doesn't
Now,
seem
they
like
didn't
there's
get all
much.
the Newman, obviously. Marika herself would escape and become a god. She would transcend into a higher form of existence. And several other Newman women with close ties to Marika herself were said to have been spared the horrors of the jar, but a huge portion of their race was gone now.
Who would these
Marika
women
essentially
be?
took drastic measures to ensure that that wouldn't happen again.
Referencing the
Now, we
monks.
don't exactly know the specifics of how Marika overthrew the Hornsent. I mean, we know she has
we have actually a
habit
lot.
of using seduction and clandestine operations. She had a clear-cut motto of, if you can't beat him, then seduce him. A good early example of this would be the Giants of the Mountaintops. Now, it isn't really mentioned much, but they were a pretty big deal, a huge threat. They drove the ice dragons from the mountaintops just so that they could settle them, so I don't think that they were going to back down from Marika's challenge. Really, they were nothing to laugh at. They had the numbers, strength, and fire on their side, so what she did was she tipped the balance, seducing the lesser giants, known as the Trolls, to her cause, as well as the Zamor Knights, who had had this age-old hatred for the fire giants, and she brought them all over under her umbrella.
Sure,
Look
that
how
sounds
effective
fair.
that was. I mean, it played out perfectly for her. Pretty much an extermination of the greater giant race. The only one left is one that she kept around because she figured she might have use of his fire one day. I think another great example would be the conflict with Caria, where as Radagon, she couldn't quite break the Carian lords and their leader and the might of the Academy. Twice she invaded, and twice she was fought to a stalemate, again as Radagon. Now, the second of these stalemates also ended in the unification of the houses of Caria and the Erdtree in the form of a marriage between Radagon and Renala. Muriel the Turtle can tell you all about it. He's basically the George R.R. Martin of Elden Ring. If you need any proof of that, just type in George R.R. Martin Turtle, and you'll see that that's basically like his personal sigil. Anyway, it's not hard to believe that a young Marika, after seeing her people brutalized to be made into saints since their flesh melded really well with others, could have enacted some sort of plot that involved seducing an important Hornsent to overthrow their entire race. And to become God.
Well.
Just ask Granny Hornsent. She views Marika as a quote-unquote strumpet.
Well, I
think
already
it's
see some
entirely
problems here.
possible that it was this sweet old lady's son that may have in fact been seduced by the future Queen Eternal. You know, all in order to advance her scheme of vengeance that ultimately paid off in the long run. This is all just speculation, of course, so as always, let me know your takes in the comments. And speaking of which, the statues of her in the Shadow
I'd love
Realm
to see
could
some
tell an
elaboration
interesting
here.
story as well. Were they erected after Mesmer's crusade or before? Now, yes, the heads of all these statues have been removed, of course, but was this in response to Mesmer's atrocities on Marika's orders, or was it something else? Could Marika be hated for another reason? One that perhaps predates these crusades? I mean, why
No,
else
this is
would the,
probably
heads
related
have
to the
been
Crusades and
removed?
her
Could it have
destroying
been
the Elden
Marika's
Ring. We
possible
see that all
seduction
around,
and
so
betrayal
no.
of the Hornsent people for what they'd done to her village and kinsmen? I mean, I think it's possible. This is, of course, assuming that the shaman people were being put in jars before Marika betrayed the Hornsent, since the whole Saint Jar initiative is believed to be her primary motivator
yes,
in
that very
all of
clearly.
these
I don't think you can.
transgressions she's made against the Hornsent people as a whole, and later her attitudes towards the Omen. To me, it does make the most sense, but maybe it's more complicated than that, because remember, they talk of Marika betraying them, and we assume them to be leaving out the fact that they had butchered her people, and that's what led to her actions against them.
Which
But
I
there
would take
arises
issue
a few
with.
other possibilities from all this. So, option A, they don't view what they did to America's people as wrong or horrific. They were turning them into saints, after all. That's how the Hornsent saw it. And you gotta remember how brutal the Hornsent religion and its gods were. Look at the Curse Blades or the Tree Shaman and anybody born with Tanglehorns.
Okay, fair
It really
enough.
didn't do you any favors to be blessed by the Horn God. Now, there's also option B. The butchering of the Newman/shaman people happened after America's betrayal, but before she returned with Mesmer and his unending purge of the Hornsent.
God, I
And of
hate you.
course, last but not least, option C, probably the most popular. America began working her way up the chain of Hornsent, and while in the process of this, she learned of what was happening to the Newman and became vengeful. She then decided to betray them for it, and
Wait,
the rest
whoa,
was
whoa,
history.
whoa,
She
wait.
became God.
Wait,
and pretty much
So, if I'm understanding this right, what he said, I'm not gonna, I can't speak to the popularity or anything of what was just said, but like, so, in this assessment, the idea would be that America was already trying to cozy up with the Hornsent, then they perform the, they start doing the shaman stuff, and then America's like, okay, I want to have vengeance on you. Am I understanding that's how they want to put it? Fair enough, turn you into super glue. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, if you just got a bunch of people there that are just perfect for super glue, I mean, they're right there. Do you blame them? I watched that Reaper Leviathan come through the ground. Yeah, I was like, where the hell did that guy come from? Like, I understood the Warper, but then the frickin' Leviathan. This is indeed a ramble. Yep, it's definitely a ramble, right? So I'm not gonna blame the guy because again, he prefaced it. It's a ramble, but like, there's a lot of things where I'm like, oh, you know what? I would like a little bit more like elaboration on what you mean by that, for sure. Oh yeah. But okay, so if I have that right, so the idea is America's already, quote unquote, I guess as he would want to put it, as seducing the Hornsent, right? Now, I think there's definitely some flexibility on how you interpret the seduction and betrayal mentioned in the trailer, right? You definitely talk about it as being like America being seduced by the power versus her seducing other people. But I don't have a problem in and of itself with saying that she seduced the Hornsent to work with them. I would just have an issue with saying that this timing was before anything that happened or that she was acting for vengeance. As I've always said, the timeline for vengeance has never made sense. There's just too much necessary crap that has to happen in between, including her giving birth and raising kids like Mesmer to adulthood, so that way he can perform the crusade in question. That's making, like, it just doesn't make sense for what she's doing. Like, this isn't how people who are trying to do vengeance operate, where you basically are working with the enemy and are perfectly okay with them until other intervening events, which happen to be, a bigger motivating factor for why you might want to get rid of the person who has the Tower of God, right? Again, it's one of those things where I feel like if vengeance had any role to play in America's decision-making, it was definitely, like, sort of de facto. Like, sort of, it's been very much kind of, or I should say retroactive. Like, it's like, I didn't really like those horns anyway. When I eat the forbidden cotta candy in my attic. Yeah, don't do that. That's probably not good for you. Why not buy the vegan meat glue powder? Vegan? Ugh! That's not good quality glue. Alright. So let's go back to the vid, though.
stamped the Hornsent almost entirely out of existence. And sure, there's probably other possibilities too, but we'd probably be here all day, and I've still got this whole video to go. So let's move on to America's
we can
famous
just deal with
conquest.
likelihoods, can't
So
we?
she started by
That's what
slaying
analysis is
the giants,
for.
the biggest and strongest of all the races in the lands between. But she didn't stop there. After America, her husband Godfrey, and their combined forces of Zamor warriors and the legions of the capital, they completely annihilated the fire giant race to the last man. There's only one fire giant left. She also turned the fire giants' lesser cousins, the trolls, against them as well, so they were really fucked in this situation. But anyway, she turned the last fire giant into a prison of sorts for their fell eldritch god. Either because she didn't have the ability to destroy this fire
I'm not sure if
god, or
prison
perhaps
is
that
the
she
word,
knew
but
she would need its fire again later at some point. And she obviously didn't stop there. She had to put down a couple rebellions in her time. There was one led by the Glowmide Queen, who commanded this horde of Godskin apostles. And after she had her shadow brother Malekith deal with this, she decided that she would seal away death in Farum Azula, make everybody have eternal life.
In Farum
Now, again, this
Azula,
could be all part of her
no.
plan, or this could have just been
No.
knee-jerk reaction. Anyway, I think the last thing
No,
Malekith did
that's-
before officially starting the Golden Order and becoming a god was probably her coolest. And it wasn't anything complex or complicated, really. All it was sending her most twisted, darkest, Daemon Targaryen-esque son, Mesmer the Impaler, to go do what he does best, impale.
Okay.
Impale, burn, destroy the Hornsent, and extract revenge from them for what they did to Marika's people. And let's not forget, the Hornsent, yeah, they weren't no saints, but they weren't exclusively just fucking Marika's people over. They were pretty fucked to their own people as well, and regular humans. Marika just kind of took it personally. And this was all possible because Marika did something weird at the Gates of Divinity. It seems like she stole the vision or something, the sight, the gold, or something from possibly Metyr, the Mother of Fingers, in that trailer for the DLC. But we're not going to get into all that here. We're going to mainly talk about her scheme and her involvement with the Knight of Black Knives.
What?
And
Oh,
what
no.
her endgame was. So
Oh,
let's fast
no.
forward a little bit. Marika becomes a god, and then she immediately begins her scheme to free herself from the Greater Will and this
Oh,
sort of
no.
other part of her persona that embodies order, known as Radagon, since
Oh.
he's basically the Greater Will's
okay.
#1 fan. A lot of good that does him in the end, though. The embodiment of the Greater Will just straight up turns him into a weapon, turns him into a sword.
Well, yeah,
Anyway,
that's
though,
very
to,
true.
Escape this eldritch.
All right, so again, for I've said this before, but again, just for the record of this video, he doesn't touch on exactly the use of Radagon, but I think the implication would be that Radagon and Marika would have to have always existed together or something, either from birth or from when she became a god or what have you, right? And the issue I would have with that is definitely, like, one, is that Radagon's character is completely consumed by the fact he doesn't himself know what he is. He just understands he's some sort of incomplete entity, and he's obsessed with trying to understand where he fits into the Order, which is why he so obsessively embraced it, right? You know what I mean? It's one of those things where it's like, it's the one thing with which you can kind of try to rationalize and sort of, you know, solve your existential crisis around, by trying to understand it on a fundamental level, and so you are sort of marry yourself to it. Now, the problem is that if you have this idea that Marika had Radagon this entire, at least let's say, like, well before the events of Mesmer's Crusade and all that stuff, right? Well, then you essentially have Radagon just kind of sitting around twiddling his thumbs or whatever, doing nothing about trying to solve his existential crisis, which should obviously be also Marika's existential crisis, right? Which is why I've always found that I think that Radagon's origins are a lot closer to either being some sort of reaction to either something in her research. Maybe you can make a case for the fire giants if you want to take the Giant's Curse thing quite literally and be like, oh, you know, the Giant's Curse or whatever, right? But I would say that I would definitely say it's probably something closer to, like, you know, the middle of her reign, or I should say middle of Godfrey's reign, you know, end of Age of Plenty, you know, around that period, rather than, you know, something where, like, he's been around for so long, because it's around the end of the Age of Plenty where Marika's finally looking into, oh, you know what, we need more int in our build, we can't just be a faith build. Faith, you know, faith alone is not, you know, it's not helping me. So, that is where I would, that's where I would land as far as Radagon is concerned, and where I think a lot, again, obviously this is a ramble, right? He's just kind of ranting or whatever. But I think if you're trying to, like, talk about Marika scheming and things and all this stuff, her trying to, like, get away from the Greater Will, again, taking that for granted that that is what she's trying to do, wouldn't happen until much later. It's not like she becomes a god and she's instantly like, I need to be free of God. It's very clear from her own dialogue that this is not her own idea. She was kind of resting on her laurels, kind of taking the power of her faith-based order for granted. It's not until that she starts trying to understand her order, and when she understands, that she starts moving towards, obviously, some level of trying to break free. Where did this Radagon represents order thing come from? Presumably because of his fundamentalism ties. Now, again, I have no idea. Again, I don't know what he means when he says represents order, or embodies order, or something like that. It could be he's referring to just, you know, thematically or narratively. Obviously, he sort of, you know, he makes fundamentalism his identity. So, like, you know, he sort of stands, you know, he stands in solidarity with the Golden Order. He's essentially its agent, right? Obviously, America herself sort of alludes to that by referring to him as the dog of the Golden Order, right before she breaks the Elden Ring. So I think that is probably the idea. But again, this is a rant. This is a breakdown analysis. So it's hard to get an idea because the guy's just trying to, you know, go off on ideas, assuming that you kind of follow a lot of these things, and I mostly do. But there's some stuff where I'm like, I would like a little bit more clarification there, what we mean by that, right? A little bit more nuance. But again, this is a rant video. This isn't a, you know, dialogue. They locked me in a rubber room filled with rats and make me crazy. Well, sorry to hear that, Kobe. I don't know why you got locked into your attic. Okay. This kind of sounds like racism with extra steps. Yes, this is my problem with a lot of the complaints about America's vengeance, right? It's like, yes, she really wants to genocide these people for what they did to her people, and then proceeds to basically just work alongside them and do no genociding for basically the majority of her rule until things were looking bad for her kingdom. And then says she's like, you know what we really need right now? Genocide. Like, I understand the idea of like, oh, America's playing the long game, but none of her behavior would suggest that she's acting in vengeance. It suggests that she's acting in her own self-interest of preserving her order. And the Hornsent were ultimately sacrificial. It's like, hey, it's great that you helped me, but I don't need you anymore, right? That's more so what Marika's asking, right? And again, I've talked about it before. I'm pretty sure the reason why she like her last visit to her grandmama and the talk about her praying, wishing, and confessing is basically her admitting, yeah, you know, grandmama, you know, I haven't been back here in a while or whatever. Yeah, you know, I'm kind of responsible for the death of everybody. You know, sorry about that. I hope you all can forgive me. Don't worry, I'm dealing with, you know, I'm kind of avenging you now, you know, belatedly. So go have fun with that later. Right? And she leaves the nice, kind thing, right? Because obviously, I am someone who believes that Marika, by all indications, is a very empathetic person. She does love her family, quote unquote, right? Her children, her clan, right? Her tribe, things like that. We can see that especially with how tolerant she is with the Dominula stuff now, and in retrospect, how she some of her you know, relations with the Nox and things of that nature, right? So I think it's very clear that Marika is very much someone who cares about kin. The problem is that Marika also cares about power. And when push comes to shove, she has often chosen power over family, repeatedly. And that hurts her personally. Because again, she's an empathetic person who cares about her family. But, and that, we see that reach a breaking point with Godwyn. But anyway, again, this isn't my video, this is me listening to someone else's video, so let's get back to that, huh?
Known as the Greater Will, Marika began her schemes almost immediately. She sent her husband Godfrey away outside of the lands between, and more importantly, outside of the sphere of influence of the Greater Will. She sent him back home to the Badlands.
Alright, this is interesting. Is it actually outside the sphere of influence of the Greater Will?
His crew,
because I don't know about that,
as they would come to be known. And she promised him that one day, after they've grown strong from living and dying in these endless conflicts out in the Badlands, that their grace would be restored to them, and that they could come home to the lands between and serve her once again, you know, or Godfrey could reclaim his rightful place as her husband. This was essentially Marika keeping an army of powerful warriors in reserve, out of sight and out of mind from anybody who could catch on to her schemes, you know, and most importantly, like I said, the Greater Will and its many spies and eyes. I mean, it's no surprise Marika was paranoid by this point already. The curse of the Omen had already taken two of her sons, you know, not to death or anything, but out of the public eye and, you know, into the sewers. I think it was at this point that Marika realized.
Well, I mean, she was kind of involved in that decision.
Old gods she pissed off were going to attempt to strike back at her in any way they could. In this case, the vengeance of the Hornsent was personified into what I believe is the Omen curse, and it sort of just, well, in no small way, keeps the Hornsent race alive by producing these omens.
Sounds good.
Who are then shunned and turned into slave soldiers or are hunted down. The babies, of course, have their horns sliced off rather violently and put onto these,
Yeah, okay, so some clarification on the Omen. Generally speaking, the practice in the capital appears to have been to, kill them. That seems to more or less be it. They would kill them, and they would dump the bodies on the edge of the plateau. That's what we see with all the coffins with the, at that time they were using, the golems from Rao. Obviously, we know they would eventually adopt trolls. But I've said before, I think that was probably not until after Godfrey was out of the picture. I think there was just too much respect that Godfrey had that he would allow his wife to do that to the trolls and stuff like that. Plus, you need some generations so they can kind of get stupid and kind of like, you know, kind of get lax under America's, you know, living under the glory of America's regime and all that jazz, right? But anyway, you know, go away. Putting all that aside, so generally speaking, it seems like the only reason we have Omen who are still alive is because of A, the royals who got, you know, what a shocker, the royal family are hypocrites. They ended up trying to keep their own kids alive even as they were having the other ones mandated be massacred, right, for all the other folk, right? And then and they ultimately would dump them in the sewers rather than actually kill them. So they could at least, you know, be able to survive, you know, theoretically, you know, close by and be able to, you know, live than be able to die, right? You know, it's one of those things where you know, you condemn someone to, like, a terrible fate, but because, you know, it's better for them to live, you know, live at all than to not, right? And then you have, the penal colony. So Stormvale, a lot of the Omen that we see seem to trace back to Godric's forces. And Godric's forces over at Stormvale. So it seems like what happened was, the overseers who are stationed in charge of, the penal colony at the time, they were essentially having their own kids, you know, they were doing, you know, like anywhere, right? Like, you know, you bring your family, you start a family, right? Like, you're trying to, like, you know, make do with wherever your job is, right? Same with, like, an ambassador or a diplomat or whatever when they go to a foreign country or whatever, right? Like, oftentimes they'll bring their family with them or something like that, and they'll basically kind of be treating it like a vacation where they're going to live over in that area for a while. That's essentially what happens in, the case of the penal colony. And those overseers are then having children, and those children are also affected by the curse, which also explains why we could see Omen, you know, quote-unquote, you know, somewhat widespread, but not actually, you know, but still limited to Marika's clan, right? Because one we now know is a curse specifically for the quote-unquote children of Marika, you know, all those who are under Marika's, you know, nation. And then you have the, I died. And then you have, on top of that, you have essentially just sort of like, you know, all these Omen children that are being born, but you're all out on the fringes, right? So again, I don't want to get rid of my kid, even if he is a fugly horn baby, right? I love my kid, my newborn baby, right? So, I'm going to keep my newborn baby, right? And I'm going to have my, I'm gonna have my newborn baby basically grow up and be like, you know, under me or what have you, right? Now, as we can see, they ultimately get enslaved and stuff as well. You could argue whether or not that was the overseers. Again, it's sort of the idea of, well, you know, when push comes to shove, fine, we'll let them live, but we'll have them be as slaves. Or maybe you could make an argument that, hey, maybe they didn't really care about their kids, but rather than kill them, they saw purpose by having them as added labor. Oh, there's where I am. Loki moments in every game. Shot it! Certified Loki stream. He also said the Badlands is Godfrey's home, which is actually the Plateau. The Plateau and or, you know, the northern realm of Shadow area, right? Because we have to be fair with the Highlander culture and stuff. It's clear that while we have the barbaric stuff on Altus, they also added the Highlander stuff to the Shadow Altus kind of area, right? So it's clear, like, you know, just let's just say the Highlands, right? Also, I've gone over, and I'm pretty sure, based on what the DLC gives us, we can confidently say that the Highlanders come from Kaiden. Like, they were originally people of Kaiden, and then they split off as they moved south to the more temperate cultures and became, you know, the Bear Obsessors we know them as. Slavery with extra steps. Well, yeah, so again, the point is that it's not like this thing where it's like, oh, you know, it's this inconsistent thing where, oh, you know, they killed them, or they hunted them, or whatever. It's more so seems to be the idea of, yeah, they killed them, if you were in the capital, unless you were royal, then they were dumped in the sewers, and then those in the sewers were probably hunted by those like Rollo. And then maybe you could say there's some stray ones, you know, some people who refused to obey the edict and therefore had to be hunted outside of it. Again, I think that's possible, maybe. But again, I would just say, just for the sake of charity, that we have to assume that at the very least, the capital was definitely a place with all the nobles and things like that. Those were all mandated, you can't do it. Maybe you could argue villages and stuff weren't necessarily obeying that type of diktat. Right? Anyway. So, again, I just want to clarify all that about the Omen for the sake of saying that, like, it's very much an organized thing, and I don't, again, this is a rant video, so it's fair that, you know, he's just trying to, like, you know, he's just speaking off the cuff, and he's trying to, like, summarize and go through, like, all the data points off the top of his head. You know, I've been there, I've done that, you know, it's never ideal, so he's doing, I think this is fine enough, but again, I just want to clarify for that is that, you know, there's a lot to break down. I think that's true, I think, for most of this video that I'm listening to. I think that there's just a lot here that is being said that that you could definitely you know, you could definitely go into a lot more detail on and do a much more you know, linear, thorough breakdown on the history. But again, I think this is fair enough. Let's get on to the next part, because this is 10 minutes in.
These Omen cleavers for the Omen killers to use. But you guys are all familiar with that, you know, just another bad story, right, Hawk? Anyway, America had some more kids until something very concerning happened. A few of these kids, mainly the ones who happened to have Radagon as their father, turned out to be Empyreans that could, quote-unquote, succeed her. Now, obviously, there were exceptions like Ricky and Radon, who were the offspring of Radagon and weren't Empyreans. But it's interesting that
Ricky
this
and Radon.
part of her that she'd rather be rid of just so happens to create her replacement for her.
I call them Ricky and
How
Rad.
did she not see the writing on the wall? They were attempting to push her out, and that's something that just wouldn't stand for her. Radagon himself is seemingly just the Golden Order's lackey that happens to reside within Marika, you know, and have this sort of consciousness of his own. A consciousness that is just completely loyal to the Greater Will as its lapdog. And I think Marika probably felt like she...
Now, this is something that I myself have said in the past. I would not be, again, I still more or less subscribe to this, but I'm still open to other possibilities. But I would more or less say that if you were to tell me why I think Radagon exists, my assumption would be he is some sort of punishment placed upon Marika by the Greater Will for how she handled the Glowmite Queen incident, and essentially resisting the Greater Will's clear desire for a separate order, right? And then the Greater Will kind of cooled off on that for a while until we had the births of the new Empyreans, right? Now, again, there's a lot you can break down and question about that. Like, again, is it actually the Two Fingers and not the Greater Will who's behind this, the decision for Empyreans and things like this? Like, again, where does that, like, quality comes in there? How can the Greater Will actually influence things to that degree? If so, why does it do that? Why does it do, like, say, give Marika a second self versus, say, other actions that it could possibly take, right? There's a lot of questions there that does invite. But that would be where I think it would stand, is that the reason why we see Radagon at the very least predisposed by his nature to simply obey and follow the order, even though he is supposed to be essentially, you know, an extension of Marika, is that he's essentially chained to preserving the order as the Greater Will's lackey. Now, again, this goes down to my question: if the Greater Will is so open for changes to the order and stuff, does it really want to you know, essentially, you know, create someone who's going to keep that order together above all costs? I don't know, maybe. Again, it depends on how spiteful that we're talking about the Greater Will is to Marika, being like, okay, hey, you want to keep your order the way it is? Okay, I'm going to make you have to keep the order your way it is with your little dog that's going to annoy you. Could it be Elden Beast punishment? Yeah, that's another possibility. Could it be the order itself, the Elden Beast, the ring, you know, the incarnation of order itself that is essentially imposes this upon Marika? Like, again, there's a lot of angles you can take this. Yeah, there's certainly an argument that she has in fact been that she's being punished and stuff, but you know, by the crucifixion stuff we see. But again, the crucifixion is essentially being done by agents acting on behalf of the Greater Will, like the Fingers, like the rest of you say Marika's kingdom. You know, is that or the Elden Beast? You could even say, is that really the Greater Will in and of itself acting directly to place Marika in that bind? I don't know, right? That's stuff where I'm like, I'm not even at that point in the timeline, which is why I'm very suspicious of a lot of these, you know, this idea of Marika scheming and stuff, because I've not seen it prima facie, right? All the text and stuff that I can look at regarding that period and what we see with Marika's history tells me otherwise. I would say that probably when it comes to Marika's again, he had the quote at the very beginning about Marika talking about, you know, becoming a god or not, right? Like, this is Marika. I don't know if he included that very first part, but this is her addressing her children, her beloved children, right? Now you can try to say whether that's tongue-in-cheek when she's talking about that, right? But again, like I said before, it looks to me like, by all accounts, Marika genuinely loves family. And I think when you have 3 Empyreans showing up versus last time when you had to kill just one of your kids, again, Melina, for being Glowmine Queen and all that stuff and starting a rebellion against you, I think she's trying to handle this where, 1, her kids aren't going to try to do this rebellion against her, right? And 2, by sort of like kind of like easing it in where, you know what, maybe this should happen, right? I think this was really Marika starting to kind of turn the other leaf. And I think the problem was, as she was doing that, she still got fucked over, right? Like, a bunch of her kids, including Godwyn, got killed anyway. And that just ultimately broke her. Shield. I never understood lore-wise what it means when one levels up the faith stat. I can understand int as you use your souls to be smarter, but upgrading faith is a bit abstract for me. I've talked about this in my book, Abyssal Archive Grim. And again, I recommend that book for anybody who just wants, like, you know, Dark Souls 1 is a great, it's a great game to just break down, like, sort of methodology and Miyazaki storytelling and stuff, and just, you know, helping you get in the frame of reference for how these games have their stories told and how they convey things to you. But as far as faith is concerned, generally the idea of faith seems to be the your conviction. So it is your when you have quote unquote faith in something, it is your conviction in the reality of an idea or concept or belief, regardless of the empirical evidence to it, right? So when you have intelligence has generally in the Japanese text been written as something like a knowledge or comprehension power or a logic/reason power, right? So generally it's like, okay, your ability to reason, your ability to know things, your ability to comprehend something, right? Whereas faith has always been just this idea of your belief. And the idea, of course, of behind faith is that you are, you have the conviction to believe in that thing. So that's how I would define it, is that when you're talking about the faith stat, you're talking about the conviction behind faith. I did recently purchase the book. Must not have gone to that part yet. I talk a bit about faith in the first chapter yet. So maybe if you've read that one, you might want to go back and read over the Schools of Magic section in the first one. Hey, Schwank, good to see ya. The toddler put a bit of a tinfoil in the toaster, and then the toaster blew up, and it pissed off the guts. You guys come up with the ridiculous crap. Anyway, let's see. I thought of that because of the red spear in Marika that disappeared when she becomes Radagon. Elden Beast crucifies you. Similarly, yeah. I can totally blame it on the Elden Beast and stuff like I said. This is an area where I'm not even focused on. So I'm not even going to say that I'm, like, intrinsically opposed to some of the ideas being put forth. I just need to hear more elaboration on them. Because, again, from my understanding of all the facts and everything and how they arrange, I just don't see it. Yeah. So you just gotta worry about, when it comes to, you know, sort of dealing with, like, sort of the history and stuff that, like, you actually know, like, the order of events and things. And again, this RAM video is kind of, like, glazing over that, because I assume the author isn't that familiar with it. Otherwise, they probably would have structured the video differently, right? Like, but I feel like this is something where you have to think about, like, okay, the timeline, what's happening, when is it happening, why it's happening, right? That's sort of very important, right? Haha, Funny Fish Game. Yeah, Funny Fish Game while we listen to Elden Ring lore. It's great. I love it. Anyway, back to the lore.
She'd be damned if she was going to be going out like this. I mean, she was the Eternal, and to be Eternal meant she was damn well going to survive.
Like I said, I think this was Glowmine Queen era Marika. Yes, I think post Radagon marriage Marika. No.
So she stages this whole elaborate conspiracy to, I think, get the Elden Beast killed and Radagon, since it just, you know, turned him into a weapon. I think that's what this was all about. If nothing else, it was, you know, about destroying the Elden Beast and getting rid of Radagon.
I would say no. I think,
and, you know, in order to
I don't think that came into the picture until after her imprisonment.
The children and the stepchildren had to go. They were worthy sacrifices, as she probably saw it. It was nothing personal.
Oh,
really.
Gosh.
This was about self-preservation and maintaining power, as far as I can tell. And again, of course,
I would agree early on, not at this point.
And the Elden Beast. One thing I've learned in this doing this research on America is that she's quite unapologetic about her actions and why she did them. It's almost as if she prefers to be known as this treacherous, scary, someone you don't want to cross. I mean, if she couldn't beat you in a fight, she would find a way to seduce you and
Is
steal
that
all of
true?
your power and make you enthralled to her.
I don't
mean,
know.
Shit, think about it. She seduced the lesser giants to her side, turning them against their much larger, older cousins. And, then what'd she do? Enslaved a good number of them after they were no longer needed in the war effort. Although
I think we're ignoring the time period.
I think those trolls, the lesser giants, are willingly serving America in that capacity.
There's a
They're
gap
just
there.
Sort of, and sure, a good number of them have their own autonomy and are just kind of doing their own thing across the lands between. But the ones that have to pull the carriages, that seems like a pretty painful way to be hooked up to a cart. That's all I'm saying. But shit, maybe the trolls are into that. Maybe they really wanted to be free from the fell god.
Yeah,
that
let's not
America
judge.
Didn't even really have to do much seducing. I've always liked the trolls. But moving on. And again, as far as concern for her own children goes, she locked her son Mesmer behind a veil of shadow and set him upon the horn scent. like a
Again, I
mad
think we
dog,
should put
and
this in
turned out
context.
he was actually quite methodical and calculating about his slaughter. She only returned to that area one.
All right, again, we have to be. Let's put this in context. His sister, who also had a vision of flame like him, had just committed a rebellion, including killing a bunch of her own brothers and sisters. Right? Again, the god hunts are demigod hunts. Right? Again, this is made clear in the cut content stuff. But again, looking just at the timeline, and everything works out. There's no other candidate except the demigods. Right? So at the very least, you're arguing descendants of America. And very good chance that at least some of those descendants aren't just, the Godric types. You probably have a few of America's actual children who are also being victimized here. So this is something where it's like, okay, literally almost killed her and her entire family, as well as threatening her power. And now you still have one kid left who could theoretically do the same thing. Like, he's got the same vision, he's got the same divine mandate to burn down America's order, her world, her tree, everything. Yeah! Of course you're gonna lock him in another dimension after basically mandating that he prove his loyalty to you by, committing this genocide in dishonor and secrecy, essentially, right? Like, of course you're gonna do that. Like, why is this? Is this that outrageous for her to do in that case? Like, you could argue the morality of this, but like, we're putting morality aside here. We're dealing in a Souls dark fantasy setting. Like, this is pure politics and just pure, self. Like she's like he was saying earlier, self-preservation here. It has nothing to do with like sort of like she loves Mesmer, she doesn't love Mesmer. Like Mesmer is a very real risk. All right, I'm gonna go take a quick bathroom break, Chad, and then we're gonna continue with this. But I like this video a lot. By the way, I like that this guy's got a nice like radio voice to listen to and stuff, right? I would love. I do prefer like having either like actual discussions with people or listening to in-depth analysis, though. Honestly, right? Rant videos are good when I'm are just trying to like I guess have a platform for me to talk about. But I don't think it's a good way to dissect what someone actually thinks about any of these lore topics they're discussing. Alright, so BRB. Alright, I am back. I'm back. Alright. I wonder how America didn't go to a wheelchair after so many children born. Listen, after the Omen kids, I'm surprised anyone in America's kingdom could still have babies. Maybe that's why in the network test they were talking about how no one does the sex thing anymore. Maybe it wasn't because everyone's at war and nobody's like in a position where they feel comfortable having kids. Maybe it's just that... Maybe it's just that, you know, after all the Omen they gave birth to, like, their vajayjays are completely, you know, completely, torn. I should also probably have some of this popcorn I put on the side for me, you know? Now, you guys are gonna hear the chewing and stuff, so probably not. Alright. Alright. So let's see, where were we? Ah, yes, Mesmer. Let's Mesmer.
One time, and it was to bathe her hometown in a healing light and sort of just lock it away from the rest of the Shadow Realm.
Yep.
Who knows why she did this, considering that no one was currently living
Well,
in
I
it
talked about it
anymore, and
earlier,
most
so...
of the shamans were either escaped to other parts of the lands between or were cut up by a nasty...
Well, okay, so the implication here seems to be that the shaman, at least from what I'm understanding, is he believes that the shaman were, he believes that the Newman, he essentially thinks that all shaman, all Newman are shaman. I don't think this is true. I think the shaman were Marika's village, and the Newman are the larger race that the shaman are included among, right? So I don't agree with this idea that, you know, Marika escaped, but so did a bunch of other shaman who I would assume have to become the Nox, because I don't know where else these Newman... Or I guess maybe also the Newman that you can become a Newman outside the Lands Between. Maybe that's the idea as well. Which, again, I would disagree with that for, you know, separate reasons relating to their rarity of birth and stuff like that and the meaning behind that. But putting that aside, I think the idea that, you know, that there's so many escaped and stuff, I just don't think that's true. I think ultimately this was one village that had a bunch of Newmen that had a very specific quality to them, right? They were all rounded up and essentially, you know, taken to the jails and experimented on and stuff like that. Now, was that all at Bonnie Village and then they were moved to the jails or whatever? I don't know. I haven't done the full breakdown of Hornsent stuff, partly for that reason. I just think it's such a large topic between that and the Crusade. But I can definitely see the sort of idea that, you know, okay, Marika, she you know, all her people are dead, they're gone, but she's obviously going to leave a memorial for them. So I don't think it's this big mystery of like, oh my god, why is she doing this when they're all gone or escaped or whatever, right? Like, however you want to put that, like, there's personal meaning and symbolism for her. And again, from what I can tell, it seems like she was doing that as like this sort of like pure, unorderly kindness because it was the only thing she could do for the people who she essentially sacrificed for her order, right? She essentially tried to create some nice, uncomplicated, uncomplicated, like, sort of, like, you know, healing, grace of gold, with which they could enjoy, in contrast to all the gold of the Hornsent, and from Marika herself, which was essentially, used to destroy them, right? Like, her order is founded upon their deaths. Anyway, so, let's get back.
Rotten tooth whip and stuffed into what would become known as the living jars.
Yay!
Although at the time I believe they were called saint jars. Now, I do think it's sort of unclear the exact directive that Marika had given Mesmer other than to just eradicate the Hornsent and burn their idols.
Okay, that's fair.
He slew the great beast, impaled the Hornsent's most revered warriors known as the Sculpted Keepers who partook in the lion dance. And Mesmer didn't stop there, though. He also burned the Church of the Bud, which was one of the oldest religions in the land of the Hornsent. It had a lot to do with their spirals, and then, you know, a spiral tree and then two buds coming out of the top. You know?
All right, I would disagree with this fundamentally. I would say the Church of the Bud is probably the most recent in Hornsent religion. Because it's very clear Hornsent religion, everything was, like, again, developing their civilization and stuff. The Church of the Bud seems to be a later development. That it was, Hornsent had their religious practices they were developing, and then they were looking at Rao into their history. And you can argue that maybe something like Belorat wasn't established until around the Church of the Bud and stuff like that, right? But I think, and their idea of the gold as the spiral or what have you. But I don't think it's this idea, like, it's this super ancient fundamental part of their religion. No. I would argue it's probably, you know, it's more so what's the word? I think, like, a sect, you could kind of say. It sort of serves that purpose. I think it's more similar to, like, a standalone church that has, like, a holy relic that you go to or dedicate to, right? Like, it's part of the like, maybe it's, like, part of the larger, like, the Roman Catholic Church or something, right? But, like, it sort of, like, has its own identity because it's famous for that relic, and a lot of its visitors are there to see that relic, etc., you know? Is he going to mention America using the pots as well? He mentions that they do become the living jars later, but he doesn't really talk about that so far. I guess we'll see. I mean, we're only like 15 minutes in, right? This is a long video. Okay, wait a minute. This entire war, killing their children, all this started over super glue. Yeah, in some ways you could say that. It was some really good super glue. Yes, very good super glue. Anyway, let's get back to the video now.
Something that looks a little bit like the thing that Melania left behind in the Aeonian swamp in Caelid after she bloomed. So yeah, Mesmer burned this church, unknowingly causing the literal creation of the Scarlet Rot. I mean... Wait. It's not exactly Mesmer's fault, though. We have to put that one on America, considering she's the one who probably...
Wait. Okay. I maybe this is just hyperbole. But I'm gonna take issue with oh god, I need a ladder. Anyway, I'm gonna take issue with you saying that the entire Scarlet Rot was created because Mesmer burned the church. I'm sorry, but no. I don't think the Scarlet Rot is dependent upon some random lanky, pale, sad boy committing genocide on the horny. I'm sorry. I don't think that's... I just don't think that's true. It seems a lot more... It seems like the basic idea is that rot exists independently, and that this is just one manifestation of the rot that appeared. And the reason why it appeared is because the Church of the Bud was already enshrining a piece of that rot. It was part of its divine essence, right? Like, that is expressly in the lore. So, like, where is this coming from? This I think has to be the most egregious statement I've heard in this vid so far, right? The other stuff I can understand, I can still, like, this is just, like, this is not knowing the basics here. Yeah, I like it pretty huge. Again, to be charitable, I'm gonna say, okay, maybe he's just talking about this being, like, he's just exaggerating, he's using hyperbole, he doesn't mean, like, the entire Scarlet Rot got be created, but that the Scarlet Rot that we see Melania, become, plagued by is a result of Mesmer doing this. Which I also don't believe. Again, I don't think Melania being born with Scarlet Rot has anything to do with whatever Mesmer's doing. I think those are completely separate things. Just like I don't think, the events with the Formless Mother happening in the Realm of Shadow have anything to do with Mohg. I think it's just the Formless Mother doing things with Mohg, doing things with other people besides Mohg. I think it's all, like, separate. Yeah, I don't need to make anything, just need the titanium, so. There we go. So yeah, like, this was pretty bad. I told you, people's interpretation of Romina's remembrance is she changes the Scarlet Rot / creates it. That is wild to me. Because I have to read the English again, because I don't remember the English being so bad that it would imply that. And as I said, the Japanese is very clear. It's just that she's sympathetic, because she's been through a similar situation that the Scarlet Rot people have. Which, in fact, the text directly implies that there must be Scarlet Rot before them because they lost their rock god. Like, yeah, oh my god, there's so many problems here. What about the Ancient Dynasty and their whole Scorpion rock god thing? Like, where does that fit in the timeline then with it? Like, there's so many problems. This is... Church of the Bud seems like syncretizing the Hornsense religion with Rau's culture surrounding Rot and Flower War. Well, here's the thing. I said before, as far as I can tell, Hornset religion, well, I should say this. The Hornsense seem to originate in Rau. Rao collapses, and the Hornsent, whether or not they were the Hornsent then, or they became the Hornsent because of the collapse, like, again, putting all that aside, right? Like I said, I haven't done the deep dive on that, so I'm not going to answer a question like that. But as far as, like, the essentials are concerned, it seems like the Hornsent essentially were this people group that were left in the wake of Rao's collapse. They had scattered across the center of the lands between. I'll call it the center for the sake of, the central land, which is what the Realm of Shadow was, beforehand, right? Like, so the center of the lands between, right? They scattered across there, and they had their little villages and stuff, it would seem like. Then they started, they go through like a dark age, essentially, right? Which typically happens when you have a system collapse of that scale, right? Then, as they're coming out of this dark age, they are looking at the ancient ruins of Rao. They're looking at that old culture they come from, and they're trying to understand what their peoples themselves originate from. And this is probably, again, where we see their religion develop into what we see with the spiral and stuff like that. The Church of the Bud seems to be sort of like one small section of that, right? Where you have, they find the Bud in Rao, because as I said before, I believe that gold and rot were sort of like this co-equal forces in Rao civilization, and that the god is probably Miranda, who would give birth and is the origin of the Miranda flowers, is what my understanding so far. But let's just say, okay, you got the god Miranda, and she had all this rock culture. Well, the ancient Civ and ancient dynasty end up collapsing, possibly because of rot in both cases. And then the Hornsent eventually come back, and they're like, hey, we found this divine element of thing from our culture, whatever, this was cool. Now, it isn't actually doing the rot things. It seems to maybe have a limited use for that, because obviously there's this idea of the purging and stuff like that, and it might be the explanation for why we see hornless monks that look like the Monumentals, right? Because we see how the Hornsent treat humans. He alluded to it earlier, right? Like, it's clear they enslave people who don't have horns. So I can only assume that if the idea is that you are, you're like worshiping like this essentially this element of the rot, that you are possibly like using it to purge maybe like bad spirits or something, or whatever way you think that might help you get closer to becoming a better vessel for godhood or something to that effect, right? Maybe the Hornsent ultimately want the horns for the spirits, but their ultimate goal is that they start with the horns, but then they will lose the horns, because then I guess they'll internalize the spirit, and it will clear the way maybe to make them better vessels, right? Like I said, this is something for a deep dive that I should be doing separately. I would say that the Church of the Bud then is, it's like a syncretism there, where they're taking an element of Rao culture of, for that comes from the civilization from which the Hornsent originate, and in an attempt to reclaim some of that culture, they establish their own little church that revolves around there, and as they're building a Bellarat and their tower and the spiral thing, it seems that the Church of the Bud was sort of seen as this one means with which to attempt to achieve the Enlightenment to become like, the Monumentals that we see behind it. Okay. If that is bad, then the ER videos I sent might be real far-fetched, well, to me at least, and many people in comments. I am scared, Nobre. The Crucible and Rao is the Flower Crucible? Yeah, essentially. That would essentially be the idea. It's like, as I've said before, the Crucible is very clearly referring to the Erd Tree in its earliest form, right? The Erd Tree as, like, when it was just like a red gold tree, right? But from what we can tell, the term is being used as a retrojective to basically any use of primordial gold, so red gold, the reddish gold that we're familiar with from that Age of Plenty era, in America's reign. It's probably same thing happened in Rao. Same thing likely happened in it might have been to a lesser extent with Farum Azula, because in Farum Azula, it's possible that all the Crucible, quote-unquote, stuff, predated Farum Azula's actual establishment. It was all about, the creation of the dragons with the red lightning and everything. I thought she changes it too when I read it the first time, but I'm gonna have to look at that again, because clearly I don't remember something about the English for Romina's remembrance that everyone else is seeing, so, oh boy. But again, that could be because I know the text, right? That's a huge problem with me for my bias, and that Elden Ring's the first game where it's like, I played the game in English, but I've also was doing like stuff on the side, like reading through the scripts, like, raw, just looking at the raw script and like, kind of like, so it's a really weird duality I have here. I've never really had this experience with the other games, right?
Ordered him to do it, but I'm sort of getting off track here again. Anyway, America seemingly came to the conclusion that at the very least her Empyrean children would have to be dealt with. The others would become willing sacrifices whether they realized it or not. But the 3 Empyreans clearly posed a pretty big threat to America's plans.
Again, I would
And that's
disagree.
where we get to the Night of Black Knives, which I believe America herself orchestrated and used Ranni as a pawn. But Ranni also had her own.
Okay, this is I think drinking the Kool-Aid type shit. This is where we're like, oh no, the big secret conspiracy where the big reveal is that it's actually Roddy who orchestrated it, as she herself will admit. No, that's too simple. It's actually America who is behind all that. Like, you're I have a few questions about that. About how that's supposed to be working. Yeah, you know what? No, Bray, I'm not even going to focus on what you're saying right there. I'm just going to let that filter in one ear and out the other because... yeah. Okay, so... The problem... Well, okay, for one, the problem is that everything in the text basically, you know, kind of goes against the idea that America would essentially... Like, America's like, ah, yes, I am going to enact a conspiracy, which will drive me mad. It will make me go crazy. What? There's also idea of America seems to be so cavalier that she doesn't care enough for her kids at all. Then why is she still having them? Like, what is the justification here? Like, clearly the problem is you having kids, America. Maybe if you could keep it in your pants or under your skirt or whatever. Well, I guess she does wear the pants in the relationship. Let's be honest. But like, if you just would kind of keep it under the skirt, we clearly wouldn't be having any of these problems. Now, would we? Maybe the issue is you then, America. Right? I don't think anyone's going to be arguing that. Like this, I think there's just huge logic issues here. Like, why are we... why is this whole thing where it's like, okay, well, there's all these Imperials up there, they're this huge threat to her. Really? Because they clearly weren't a threat. Now, maybe you could argue America imagined that they were a threat when they actually weren't, but it's like, I don't know. What we saw with the Gold-Eyed Queen clearly would be going the other way, and yet we have America seemingly telling her kids, all right, oh, hey, beloved kids, be a god, be a king, do so, or you're gonna just end up sacrificed, right? Essentially, is what she says, right? Like, you gotta go that far, right? Which is probably, I think, the best argument to say that maybe America didn't initially join, wasn't, in league with the Hornets until after she was already experiencing what was going on with her people and stuff, right? At this point, when she uses the bathroom, you hear, like, a tumbleweed pass by. Oh. She's got a lot of eggs, clearly. Anyway, the entire notion here that America is, like, responsible for all this, like you're gonna have to really, really make your case there. That is such a huge claim that I just don't think there's any evidence to really support. America's the issue? No, she's super chill. She's super chill when things go her way, that's for sure, right? Anyway, so, like, yeah, no. Like, guys, let's not go crazy here. Ranni is responsible for the Night of the Black Knives. She has her thing against America. America's just trying to mediate with everything going on with the Empyreans, America's not, Glow-Eyed Queen America. This isn't America, before, when she was all about faith, going against, like, one of her kids who betrays her and is killing her other kids and all that jazz, right? And thus has to now choose between, the survival of her family and her power base over, the survival of one child, right? That she might also love, right? That's a very, again, it's a difficult, but it's a very clear choice to make, right? We're talking about America, who, she's done all the research into the Golden Order. She's now married Radagon and stuff, and she's still developing her kingdom under the Golden Order. She's doing all this stuff. Why does it matter if she wants to she wants to become a god, but she wants to get rid of the god? Huh? Like, what? Something's not connecting there. Like, this seems like a very convoluted plan. And again, the best I can see, clearly she wants to do something with the Tarnished, right? Clearly, she's interested in using the Tarnished for something. And sure, I can get behind that. but for the maybe I can even get behind being for the overthrow of the Greater Will to some extent, because by this point, America's done a pretty good, decent amount of research, and obviously she's gonna finish up that research after she marries Ratigan, and Ratigan's gonna put the final, crossing the T's and dotting the I's for fundamentalism, right? But then she rules the kingdom with him, and it's a nice peaceful kingdom. Things are going well. It's this wonderful peace and prosperity, and then the whole Night of the Black Knives happens, right? And the Night of Black Knives very clearly happens because Ranni wants to actually, she has her own schemes going on regarding, destined death and the curse mark and freeing herself from her fate as an Empyrean, by the way. Right? So in the course of committing this act, she's theoretically doing what Marika wants, which is to get rid of these threats to her power. Can't really threaten Marika then if you're wanting to do so, right? Obviously, Ranni wants to go in a radically different direction. So is this why it's like, yes, I will make Ranni, who has this big grudge against me, actually help me along with my plans or whatever. Like, just talk to her. Just be like, hey, I know you don't like me for what I did to your mom, what your dad did to your mom and all that stuff, and, you kind of put the blame on me and your dad and all that stuff. I kind of understand, but, we could work together, and I could really help you get rid of all that. Like, why does it have to be this big secret where she's being puppeteered in order to do this? Why not let her in on it? Clearly she'd be okay with help with going against the Two Fingers and the Greater Will. If your entire scheme relies on that, why not actually be openly in league with her? Like, she's openly in league with Reich. Well, okay, it's a secret conspiracy, right? But, she's knowingly in league with Rykard. He's in on it. Why can't they all be in on it? Again, this is one of the things where it's one of those conspiracy theories where, at some point you have to accept that, the amount of, crazy, factors that are involved in order to make this all work just sounds absolutely patently ridiculous. I already think it sounds ridiculous on its face. Alright, let's... Marika, you are Ranni's dad! Right? Anyway, back to this.
Ulterior motives who may have been actually using Marika as well. They used each other. But first, let's talk a little bit about the Black Knife Assassins, since this originally was going to be a video entirely about them.
Oh, really?
What little info were given about them right off the bat.
So you think Ranni was aware of her dad being Marika? I don't know. I have no statement on that either way.
Of the Eternal Cities, but it's also
I would generally say no.
Women who
I don't think Marika...
close ties with Marika herself.
Well, let's go back a few because I wasn't listening. I do not believe that Marika is going... Marika's a bit of a prankster, right? So she does that very cheeky thing with the statue after she marries Ratigan. You have the Ratigan statue constructed, but it's actually a Marika statue with a Ratigan illusion on top of it, right? That's the the big secret behind everything with the statue. I do not think Marika is playing coy about her and Ratigan being the same person, right? I don't think she's going to be that playful about it if it's something that she's telling everybody, especially her kids, who could, let's be honest, no matter how much you love or trust your kids, you expect that shit to leak out if you're going to be telling them, especially with as many kids as she has. Someone's going to tell somebody else who's going to tell somebody else, right? If it's supposed to be this big secret that Marika basically married herself, I just don't see it that she is, that she's just telling Ranni and everyone else. Myrmia discovered a twisted divine element which she weaved into the baleful skull. Okay, I can see. So the idea of weaved. Okay, I can see. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's... I can see how that verb gets people tripped up then. Right. Let's get back to the video then. What's this about the assassins? What are we gonna hear?
Go entirely about them. What little info we're given about them right off the bat seems a bit contradictory. I mean, it's said that they're scions of the Eternal Cities, but it's also said that they were women who were close or who had close ties with Marika herself. Now, again, on the surface, it appears that Marika would be at odds with the...
Alright, so this seems to be the statement that makes everybody go crazy with the idea that Marika has to be involved with the assassins if they have close ties or whatever. The point being made is that the assassins are Newman. Or at the very least, they are descendants of Newman, so they have Newman blood, right? They're more Newman than not, for lack of a better word, right? This makes sense, because if you are a descendant of the Eternal City, you are a Nox, and by all indication, Nox are probably also Newman, right? This is a fair statement to make, I'm pretty sure. The thing that people have an issue with is the idea that they have close ties. The problem is that the term for close ties... Gosh. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Wow. I might have to move things, though, because clearly I'm getting in this guy's way. Yeah, maybe I should move, maybe, God, it's going to be annoying to have to deconstruct everything. But maybe I should move it backwards, then we do, like, we put it back here. Yeah, maybe we do that. I'll have to think about that one. In the meantime, though, more glass. Skyon, that's like you pronouncing Lycan. I don't even remember anymore. Lichen. Whatever it is. Listen, I'm not gonna challenge someone on their mispronunciations of words they don't know. Anyway, but yeah, the point about the America having close ties is to talk about affinity, you know, like, I have a personal affinity for you, you know, I feel close to you, right? It's not about being like, ah, yes, I'm, you know, secretly, you know, like, you're like my, you know, my backroom dealer and I go over there. Like, it's not that type of close ties that they're talking about. The Japanese is more so talking about, like, a psychological closeness. Like, I feel close to you, right? Like, I'm emotionally resonating with you. Which, again, is very much true because what did I talk about earlier? America, by all accounts, everything seems to show that, you know what, she loves family, she loves kin, she loves clan. She's going to be someone who, she's going to be someone who is going to be like, hey, I feel close to these Newmen of the Eternal Cities. And we see that in Leyndell, right? Like, the entire lower quarter is very clearly people who are populated by Nox and by the Nox/Newman, right? So, like, this, yeah, this ain't a good this ain't a good start. Not even at the half point of the video, by the way.
Nox in the Eternal Cities, but Marika, she calls herself Eternal, and the Nox ever really are described as invoking the ire of the Greater Will.
It should be understood that I could agree with the idea that Marika calling herself Eternal Queen is in the same vein as the Nox after being banished, establishing the Eternal Cities, right? Their eternal capitals. But I think now that we have all the stuff with the village... Oh, 1 second, chat. Stay hydrated. There we go. I think all of that is fair, but I don't think you can make a connection between... I don't think you can connect this to her feeling close to the Black Knife Assassins or the Nox in general. I feel like this might just be something that's thematically relevant, but it has no narrative, you know, like, there's no actual connection between the America's choice to call herself the Eternal Queen and the Nox. In fact, you could even make an argument that America might have chosen that title of the Eternal Queen from the very start of her kingdom, because she also would have contacts with the Eternal City by that point then. So maybe then you can make an argument where she got inspired, where she's like, oh, they call these the Eternal Cities, well, I'm going to be the Eternal Queen. Maybe that's the idea. I don't know, It feels to me like these are just two separate things that happen to use the same generic term for eternity.
Not necessarily the queen herself. In fact, Marika is a bit at odds with the Greater Will, so it could be that she conspired with the Nox at some point to overthrow the Greater Will, but they got caught and she sort of used them as a scapegoat to take the full blame and punishment. Hence the natural-born Star of the Void showing up to level one of their cities.
I've talked about this before. The stuff with Estelle has absolutely zero to do with, yeah, the stuff with Estelle has absolutely zero to do with, you know, Marika and the Eternal Cities. How do I put this? It has nothing to do with, like, anything that Marika herself does in the Eternal Cities, beyond the fact that, you know, she breaks the Elden Ring, she's destabilized her kingdom, her hold over the, nameless Eternal City, which is the one that Estelle destroyed, clearly, it was becoming weaker, right? And it was very obvious that Marika wasn't going to be able to keep things going the way it was in the future. So, of course, the Nox are going to start, like, exploring, they're going to use that moment of freedom to explore their options of what they ultimately want to do, which is to get back to the stars, create Night Lords, etc., right? And their method was Eternal Darkness, which is a spell which creates a giant black portal, obviously to the darkness of space, right? And that darkness is supposed to suck in magical elements like, say, the arcane Nox, right? Those who came from the stars and want to return to the stars, right? So then naturally they're trying to do that, but they didn't think, oh wait, this portal, things can get sucked in, but that means stuff can also get sucked out. And well, Estelle was that thing which came out and well, destroyed everything. And that's why Nokron and stuff are like, no, this is banned. Don't use this. We saw what happened. We figured out what they did. Yeah, don't do it. Which video is this right now? This video is referred to as There's Something About America. Which, certainly true. There's something about America. Alright. Let's get back to the video now.
So if we combine the two conflicting origins of them,
they're not conflicting.
Eternal cities, and also being women with close ties to Queen Marika, it's possible that Marika may have created these women with...
Alright, so here's something I would have to say. Before you talk about conflicting stuff, you should actually evaluate whether or not they are conflicting. And I know this is a rant video, I understand. But if we're going to talk about this, I would like at least the question to go out here of, like, again, unless it's something patently absurd, like, oh, this is red and someone else says it's blue, right? Even then, though, I would be like, okay, well, was it once red and then it turned blue or something like that? Like, there's, like, usually you have to at least question, like, okay, well, is it the text or is it me wrong? Sometimes it's the text. That's going to happen. There's typos, there's mistakes. That stuff happens. But, like, I think that there should have been at least a question before he's like, there's this conflicting information. Let's try to rectify it. It's like, I would argue it's not even conflicting. Now, let's
Silver
see.
Tears, or perhaps the Nox created them to emulate Marika. See, they were on a quest to replicate their lord as well, but perhaps they'd already succeeded in replicating the goddess Marika in some small way. Maybe Marika found out about these copies and took them for herself, at which point
interesting.
she utilized them as her own personal assassins who were disguised as her handmaids. This could explain
Wait,
them
okay.
both being
Okay, where's the
disguised as
handmaid thing
women
coming
and
from?
Also, Sion.
Okay, where's this handmaid thing coming from? Because are we forgetting that they had to ride in on the Night of the Black Knives after stealing from Malekith? By the way, if Marika's behind all this, like, wait, so she couldn't just tell Malekith, hey, Malekith, I want you to unseal Destined Death for me. Why, I know, I understand, like, it's in your sword or whatever, but can you hand over the sword so I can take out a piece and give it to you? Like, why do the assassins have to steal the death so Roddy can forge their weapons using the fragments of death that they had, so that way they can then, on that same night, go out and then coordinate this mass murder campaign across the entire kingdom? Like, what's the point of... And again, somehow, Marika is plotting all this out... Well, Roddy is not aware. She's supposed to be doing this as Marika's puppet. Like, she's completely, apparently unaware of all these things she's doing to undermine Marika's regime are actually part of Marika's big plan. Like, this is such a nonsensical, idea. Like, the more I think about the idea that Marika is somehow behind the Night of the Black Knives, it just gets more and more ridiculous. Yeah, I'm not watching the videos in the order they were posted. I was watching them in the order, like, the last one I saw at the bottom first, right? If there are more videos now, like, oh boy. We'll see how, again, I'm not sure if we'll even be done with this one video. This is a long one, right? This might last the entire stream. Forge is Ronnie at Blacksmith. I'm not sure if it's it could be something she did alongside EG, because we know EG's a blacksmith and stuff like that. But she somehow is able to at least take existing blades and imbue them with the power of Destined Death, right? I think there's at least one description though that does use the idea of like forged or tempered the blades, right? Anyway, let's now look at what we got here.
Of the Eternal City. One thing I've learned about the Nox is that they seem to have been at least somewhat obsessed with replicating the successes of gold, gods, lords, goddesses, with their own versions in the form of silver. We see time and time again their various attempts to replicate dragons or lords in the form of the Dragonkin Soldier of Noxtella. We see the lightning-infused Silver Tears. So perhaps the Nox tried to use their science.
I think that
to
connection
replicate
between the Elden
women,
Lord and the
perhaps
Night Lord is actually
Marika
very
herself,
apt.
And instead created these
I like that he
copies
pointed that
who,
out.
They look like Marika, sound like Marika, but there's something off about it. Maybe they're gray-skinned because they're actually mimic tears. Yeah, I know in game they bleed red blood, but so does Loretta and Gaius, who I believe both are albinoric, so it could just be, you know.
I would
a
disagree with
gameplay
Loretta.
thing.
I would agree
I think
with
the
Gaius.
Nox
Because
also,
Gaius is outright said to be
bleed
an albinoric.
which,
Loretta
I always
is
thought
not.
They were supposed to bleed
In
silver
fact, the
too,
game
but who knows?
poo-poos that
I think it
idea
could
as
just be
absurd.
a gameplay thing. Or I could be wrong, but let's move on with my theory nonetheless. I like to look at this all in my own way.
What do you mean by that?
Not necessarily the way they happened.
Now, of course, that's not definitive. It's just, you know, speculation. But I think it could explain possibly why we're not able to see what they look like. They're invisible, if you will. We can only see their armor and their hood. It'd be interesting if they were actually just these really weird, imperfect copies of Marika from the Nox, who Marika just repurposed and taught the fighting style.
I said before,
Melina.
I would
who
say
they
they're
fight
Celia
exactly
assassins.
like. For the sole purpose
Maybe
of
particular
using
Celia
them
assassins
in
selected
a,
for their
you know,
lineage, but Celia
plot,
assassins
a plot
nonetheless.
like the Knight of Black Knives. Now, I really like how she also gave them like these blue hoods and like blue cloth and capes to wear on their armor, because it sort of indirectly implicates the Carians, you know. And Ranni was in fact involved with the plot. So
Yeah, she
America did
masterminded
have
it by
set
her
up
own
in a way
admission.
where none of the blame would fall upon her, and she could just simply play the grieving mother card. That is, if she had feelings, of course. And obviously, Ranni was
Okay,
involved because
okay.
she suited her own ends too. Of
Assuming that she had feelings, of course. Okay. That's a little mean. It's like, maybe, it's like, you know, maybe she could play the grieving mother if she had feelings. It's like, oh, that doesn't sound too nice. Yeah, again, like I said, I think everything indicates that Marika is in fact a very empathetic person. Like this idea that she's like this cold hard, like she's not Gwyn. She's not this cold hard calculated asshole, right? She's an asshole, but not that kind of asshole. She's a lot more human in many ways than Gwyn. Man, really sad when we play funny fish games and we talk about a woman that's trying to start a war all because of super. You're really you're really into the super glue, huh, Kobe? All right, why not? Why make Night Lord? Why not Night God? Maybe it's a skill issue, total skill issue. All right, back to it.
freeing herself from her Empyrean flesh. But I really like to think Marika didn't really care what Ranni's ulterior motives. She probably knew she had some reason for signing up for this. But I also think Marika planned to betray Ranni and maybe even have the Black Knife Assassins do the killing of her. But maybe Ranni beat them to it and just carved herself up in front of them, which sort of just made them not investigate the situation further. They just figured, okay, she's gone. They didn't realize that, for some reason at the exact same time that the other assassins were killing Godwyn, which resulted in Ranni becoming this sort of unkillable spirit ghost thing. Now, Marika may have even accounted for this variable because she seemingly ordered the Black Knives to monitor the activities of Ranni's closest conspirators and buddies.
Wait.
The Knives seemed to know that she managed to cheat death, but perhaps because she'd slain her Empyrean flesh.
Wait, are you telling me that Marika is the one who had the assassins go after, Blythe and Iji, and yet they somehow, after Marika herself got taken out, didn't do anything while they're apparently keeping tabs for her because of Marika? Like, okay, can we not just get over the fact that very obviously Marika basically Ronnie left the Black Knives out to dry? Maybe they just have a vendetta against her because they're scattered around with no place they can get home. Like, they have no support structure. Their leader was actually captured by Ronnie and has been imprisoned. Several of them had died in the escape attempt afterward because things went so badly wrong. Like, are we gonna just brush over all that and just be like, no, Marika was keeping tabs through the assassins that Ronnie was supposed to have hired in order to go against Marika, but they're actually double agents who were in fact working for Marika and were keeping tabs on her. Like, what? Like, what is this? This is the first time I've actually heard, like, anyone at all. Again, this is a Reddit video, so it's not an analysis, to be fair. But this is the first time I've seen people, like, actually try to go through, like, just, like, the basic factoids of this whole Marika is behind the conspiracy of the Night of the Black Knives. And I'll be honest, it sounds absolutely bonkers. Like, even more bonkers than I thought. It's like this endless, like, whirlpool of absolute insanity. Like, I swear, we're talking about super glue. I think people are sniffing the super glue. Like, where are we coming up with all this craziness? Like, please. Please, my head can only take so much. I'm lost. God, give me a Smotown video. I much prefer my problems with the Smotown videos than I ever done with this. Smotown does such a good job with the analysis stuff. I think Smotown also put forward... Actually, no, I think Smotown poo-pooed the whole idea that America's behind the conspiracy, if I recall. And I think for very same basic reasons as I would.
They no longer were really concerned about her because she didn't pose a threat to America anymore, as far as they knew. Turns out Ranni did have her own, plans and goals in mind, where she was going to take over the world with the help of the moon, but that's a story for another day, and one that I may or may not have already covered. So I believe Ranni was obviously betrayed by America, but Ranni didn't really care too much.
Wait, how can you be betrayed by someone you don't know you're being manipulated by? Like, she betrayed Ranni, but wait, she's not supposed to know. What, Ranni, like... Oh. This is painful. This is getting painful. Like, oh God. Like, it's one of those things where someone, like, again, no, again, look at this guy's, like, again, just ranting, like, he's just raving, like, I'm not expecting it to be, like, perfectly thought out or whatever, but it's just, some of the stuff being said back to back where you're like, don't you realize how that completely undermines your own point? Like, it's one thing to, like, again, we all speak off the cuff, we're all gonna say things that maybe aren't exactly how we'd want to word it if we had a very structured, well thought out doing so, right? Like, it's all gonna happen. But again, like, this is supposed to be something where, apparently, this was what the video was gonna be about. So he thought this stuff through. This was the thing where he really wanted to get into, and I guess all the other stuff about America up until now was just sort of set dressing to help kind of, frame her character to make sense of why she's doing all these things. And it still makes absolutely zero sense, even taking everything he says for granted. I am flabbergasted. So that's why Tora chose us to be our super glue. Yeah, I would agree. Like, it's very clear that the Night of the Black Knives is, if anything, it is the trigger for America wanting to go against the greater will. It is not part of this giant plan. I think too many people really are trying to make out America as this master manipulator who has, like, everything's part of this grand, like, 5D chess plan and stuff. And really, I don't think so. I think she's a woman who makes mistakes, like everybody else. And she made a big mess up. She kind of let her emotions get the better of her in a understandable, heightened sense of stress and fury, right? And again, I can agree with the idea even that she was always trying to plan something on trying to get around the greater will. But I think trying to work the Black Knives into that? No, I think whatever plan she had, plans changed. I think whatever you want to say that her original plans were for the Tarnish and everything with Godfrey and all that, I think ultimately that had to get salvaged into something else entirely. And that's assuming that, it was actually America who was truly the one who was making that push, and it wasn't something that the Greater Will actually was, or the Two Fingers were actually demanding for the sake of their own plans, like what we see with the Shattering and stuff like that, right? And then America ultimately would try to, hijack that or use that for her own purposes, right? Again, there's just so much, and we're not even at the halfway point. Like, God, how insane is this going to get?
Vast number of other problems that could have arisen for Ranni to have to deal with. So she just simply went into hiding with her conspirators and sort of continued her own plans and schemes to overthrow the current world order, which she may or may not do with the players' help. America, or at the very least the Black Knife Assassins, weren't as convinced that Ranni wasn't going to be a problem, presumably because they were watching her conspirators when Ranni ran off with the Fingerslayer blade and chose then to attack. We all know how that went down.
Again, I just want to highlight that apparently we're supposed to believe that, one, the assassins are being relentlessly hunted down by the Golden Order. At the same time, they're actually, they're America's agents, and they're working with her for the purposes... God, this sounds even more silly as I say it. For the purposes of keeping tabs on Ranni, who was supposed to have hired them. And Ranni is supposed to not, one, notice that these assassins are keeping tabs on her people. care that these things are happening, or doing anything to work against it, apparently beyond, I guess, imprisoning their leader, which doesn't trigger the assassins to do anything. And again, the assassins have also apparently been keeping tabs well after America's out of the picture during the Shattering War. And they're not doing anything about Rodney's people, who again are continuing to act in the same interest as America to overthrow her order. Like, this is just crazy talk. Have you watched Smotown's bail video, Loki? I do not recall. I would want to say no.
E.G. was either slain by the assassins.
Last video I
using
think I've seen was from
black
Vati.
flame, or he, killed the assassins and burned himself with the black flame, which, either one is a valid interpretation. He wore that mirror mask to protect himself from the Greater Will, but it turns out it wasn't actually the Greater Will that would have come knocking. It was actually America and her henchmen. And as we know, Blythe survived his encounter with the assassins effortlessly, but he seemingly suffered some sort of software malfunction and went berserk. And it ends up falling on the player to actually have to put him down, whether he was your ally or not. Now, previously I'd always thought that these guys were targeted simply because they knew that Ranni was trying to make her own, world order. Maybe America suspected that that's what Ranni was up to, and she had her assassins watch her and her conspirators just to make sure that they weren't doing it.
The more he
When
says
they
it,
had
the more
evidence
silly
that
it
that
sounds.
was what she was doing. That's when they struck at her conspirators. But that is a valid interpretation. But I think it might have other possibilities.
You
like
and
there
I
might
have
be
different
other
interpretations
reasons
of
why
valid,
these
clearly.
guys were targeted. I was thinking that it's entirely possible that Ranni's homeboys may have simply been targeted for being Carians. Following the Night of Black Knives, the Carians imprisoned the ringleader of the assassins inside Neverjill, and her daughter was also slain by them trying to protect her, but was secretly given the honor of being turned into Spirit Ash by, I assume, America or someone who was authorized by America.
Wait,
Anyway,
well, I gotta hear that again. Wait, what?
Given, the other was also slain, the ringleader of the assassins. It's
Oh, no, let's
entirely
go.
possible that Ranni's homeboys may have simply been targeted for being Carians. Following
No.
the Night of Black Knives, the Carians.
Yeah, we
imprisoned
gotta get rid of all the
ringleader
Carians,
the
which is why
assassins
Roddy's the
inside
only one that
Neverjill,
anyone cares about.
And her daughter was also slain by them trying to protect her, but was secretly given the honor of being.
Ronnie's. So. I can't remember the name. So is it Alecto? So Alecto's daughter, or was it Tish and Alecto's the daughter? Whichever one it was, right? So the daughter of the ringleader was killed by the Carians? I'm pretty sure it's very explicit that she died as they were escaping the capital. How are the Carians? Like, what, did the Kari just have a diplomatic mission there that happened to be there? They're like, oh, well, time for us to kill the assassins. We're gonna unintentionally ruin America's... Like, oh my gosh. And then they got the honor of being turned to ash? What? Source? Like I said before, I don't know what's up with all the ash. But I have no idea if it's an honor or not. Like, what is this? I would presume no. That's just a thing that happens. Because we see it in a lot of places where, I would assume that someone's going out of their way to be like, I'm just going to cremate you on the spot. Alecto's the mom, Tish is the daughter. Is it Tish or Tisha? I don't know how you would pronounce the Greek for that. So Alecto's mom, Tish is the daughter. Okay, so Tish gets killed by the Carians, apparently. And she gets the honor of being turned to ash, but then they also imprison the mom. And the mom has the ashes, right? Yeah, Tish shielded Alecto from a hit and died fleeing Lingdell. Yeah. Okay, now we're just... Okay, this is the point where we're now leaving the, reasonable, sort of, assessments and just entering Crazy Town. Because you now have to bend. Like, we're now, bending things so hard in order to make sense of this whole why America's actually behind the Black Knives. The Black Knives assassins are actually all working for her, and they're keeping tabs on Ranni and her people because they have some vendetta against the Carians. like, I usually hear it pronounced Tish. What if audio files would have her use Tish in the fight? Oh, that would have been so cool. That would have been so cool if we had more audio from some of the assassins and stuff. That would have been nice for at least the ringleader or whatever being like, hey, let me out of here. I guess the idea would be that Electo would assume that we are some sort of enemy or some affiliate of Ronnie and Karia, and that's the only possible reason why we could be coming in here, right? Yeah, exactly. Like, this isn't like a mystery. We have exactly what is being told, and it's not like this. It's not like there's much room for interpretation there on how exactly it played out. Like, this is just like, okay. I was talking about earlier about what I thought was the most egregious. The whole Black Knight's assassin thing could be the most egregious claim in this, but this is the most egregious statement because it is completely unmoored from anything that the lore of the actual game lore. Like, this is ridiculous.
Turned into Spirit Ash by, I assume, Marika, or someone who was authorized by Marika. Anyway, the leader, Electo, still remains imprisoned in a hidden Everjail on the Moonlight Plateau, which is pretty hard to reach without a lot of legwork and know-how. Anyway, there weren't a whole lot of...
I will say I agree.
turnings
I'm curious
left
how this
outside
would have
of
worked
Randy and
before,
company and,
before, outside the game.
Of course. So the assassins sort of just
Like,
had
you
to
just
take
teleport
what
up
they
there?
could get, in terms of recipients for their revenge. Perhaps E.G. and Blythe were only attacked after Randy left because it was precisely her influence that had protected her friends previously from the eyes of the assassins in the first place. And
Eyes or
once she was
blades?
gone,
Because clearly
so
you're
was
saying
the
they were
protection.
monitored.
I think it's
I don't think they're like wondering where
So
the hell
these
the
Black Knight
people are if they're
assassins,
keeping
they were
tabs on
slippery,
them. You
and,
know?
Royal Omen Morgott, misguided fool that he was, invented a sentry torch, which was a way to dispel the shadow veils that the Black Knife assassins used. This basically ensured that another night of Black Knives was all but impossible. So I think that clears up any confusion as to whether or not Morgott knew that Marika was involved with the plot. And that certainly makes things interesting because some Black Knife assassins sort of just openly remain in the capital. Perhaps they're still serving Marika.
No, they
in
come
some
back to the
regard.
capital because
But
clearly
most of the
they
rest
want
of
to
the
have some
assassins
revenge.
scattered across the lands following their righteous bout of
They
God's
scatter.
domain. Some apparently
Some
are
want to try
searching
to
for the
have a
other
second
half
attempt.
of the Rune of Death, according to some.
Clearly they don't know
others.
what's going
I
on
personally
either.
believe that at least a few of them are searching for their former leader, Electo, who was taken from them. The only problem is that they seem to
that I
have
think
an
would be a fair
extremely
statement.
difficult time figuring out how to get to the Moonlight Plateau above the Albinoric village. You can find some of these assassins still hiding out in catacombs or old chapels and stuff like that. There's also a few that got stranded inside the Ordina Everjail, where they still remain today after failing to reach the
Stranded
Howler
or
Tree.
willingly
There's actually
participated?
one dead
I
one
would.
here who was either
I think there's
killed
an important
by
difference there.
Albinoric archers or perhaps by Clean Rot Knight Finley when she had to drag Melania presumably through this Everjail to open up the door to the Howler Tree. Now, there's one
interesting.
last thing about the Black Knife assassins that I found interesting but couldn't really find much of a connection on, is that there seems to be some small association between the Black Knife assassins and the Godskins, or at least there just is open similarities.
Well, I
but
mean,
no real connection.
I mean,
It made me
the
start
Root of
thinking
Death,
that
that's
perhaps
kinda
some of
it.
those, Newman women who became the Black Knife assassins had some sort of connection to the Glowmite Queen and her inhuman children. I mean, they have one thing in common, that's for sure, God killing. The Apostles fight a bit like Black Knife assassins, and when E.G. is killed, we see that he was killed with a black flame, and that's only really used by the Godskins and the people who
now,
follow them.
okay, correct me if
There's
I'm
also
wrong,
that
chat.
one Godskin noble
I
that sort of-
forget. Did I vaguely recall someone going into the files and confirming this was probably a glitch or some mistake or what have you? Was that ever clarified, or am I misremembering that? Because I have no problem with it just being quote-unquote black flame or whatever, whether or not it's a mistake or not, because, whole Rune of Death thing or whatever. But I vaguely recall that either this was fixed at some point, or, like, this was clarified that was looking in the files, that this looked like this was some sort of, like, coding error, like... I would guess unwillingly, since Invisible Black Knife appears where the corpse under the bridge is, and the corpse is gone in the Everjail. Well, yeah, I don't know if the idea of, like, you have to relinquish your physical body or whatever, and that's the point of having the corpse there. Right? Like, I have my doubts that, for example, the Albinoric archers are doing this unwillingly, right? So then the question would be, well, okay, is everyone that's in party inside that little dimension thing for the, I guess, let's call it Everjail for the sake of simplicity, are all of they, like, part of that, by their own will, or is the Black Knife Assassins kind of forced to join and help out? If so, why did they help out again? Like, by what is compelling them to, like, I would have many questions. Yeah, apparently trolls still burn white-black flames when struck with destined death fire. So it's just a troll thing. It's not just an EG thing, it's trolls in general. Just so I get clarification, no, Bray. EG had a Godskin suicide fest. Ask Zuli, she could probably make a video about why EG's flames are black, Pidia's blood is red, and why... oh, Pidia has red blood too? That is so funny! Clearly, if you're clearly, Albinorics have silver blood unless they're plot important. Then they just have red blood. That's what I'm gonna decide. That is so funny. Are we talking about, like, actual Pidia model, or when you have the dead model, where he's, like, on the floor surrounded in, like, I assume pools of his own blood, right? Yeah? Oh, my God. Okay, this, again, guy said he did research. Clearly, this was a failure of research. He did not validate to double check, hey, could this have been some mistake or something? Was this actually intentional? The fact that this isn't an EG thing, this is just what happens to trolls, regardless, tells me that, yeah, probably either some oversight in the coding, or maybe there's something about the trolls in the lore that makes it where the red turns into the white or whatever of black flames. But, like, yeah. Alright, we're back here. I'm having no luck finding, I have no luck finding this, In fact, you know what? Since we haven't really found anything, I'm gonna actually quit and go back to my save point. Dead with red stain under him. Yeah, oh god. I love FromSoft. I love FromSoft because they could do something so well and then they don't.
Guarding Ranni's remains.
Alright, so.
Jury's still out on what exactly he's doing there, but it's something that I'll definitely continue researching.
Oh, what a shocker. Guys after the Destined Death rune. Or at least the curse brand Ronnie has. What a shocker.
To some of the Aftermath Fallout style events that happened after the Night of Black Knives. I think the biggest one would probably be the mutating of Godwyn. So who knew that Marika's sealing of the Rune of Death at the beginning of her Golden Order would lead to these rather unfortunate consequences in the wake of the Night of Black Knives?
She removed it at the beginning of her Golden Order. The sealing doesn't take place until later on after the Glowmite Queen, right? That's when the sealing happens. After Malekith has to slay the queen, gets the Rune of Death back. He's like, okay, we're going to make sure nobody gets their hands on it. How better to do that? I'm going to seal it in my sword. And obviously, apparently that wasn't enough with the Night of the Black Knives. So then Malekith's like, okay, I'm going to seal it inside me.
Death had been brought back to the Lands Between in the most bizarrest of ways. Deathroot, this weird Deathroot, I guess would be the best way to describe it. It was born from the putrid remains of Godwyn the Golden. His soul was dead, but his body became undead.
Using Dark Souls 1 music, I approve.
Marika accounted for this, but at the same time, I don't think it was much of a threat to her at all. It was something that she could easily fix when she was God for eternity again, and seemingly paid it all no mind. The Tibia Mariners were able to become leadership roles within the undead hierarchy, and like Fia became their god, or at least their patron saint. It's a whole thing that I should probably get into in another video. There's always the possibility that Marika simply just didn't account for the whole mutation of Godwyn. She had to figure death would find its way to creep back into her order somehow. Personally, I've always figured that she just simply paid it no mind because she could just simply fix it when the order restarted.
Well, I would make the argument that she probably didn't even really notice, if I had to be real. Like, you could maybe argue they would have noticed at something, because at least in the trailers and stuff we see that she definitely, I should say, not she, but Godwyn definitely, like, his body has some reaction or what have you, right? But from what we see with the Godwyn corpse, it doesn't really move. It just has its eyes still open, right? And that could be for that could be like something that you think is strange, but isn't really out of place, right? The question would be is how long does it take for Godwyn to mutate from normal dude to all those worms and crap underneath his skin, turning him into giant fish bro? That I think is a lot more questionable. Now again, I think it's possible that no one really understood the full implications of Destined Death or what was going on until well after Marika had already had Godwyn, good and buried. I would be willing to, I'd be willing to hazard that that the whole destined death thing and the consequences of all that was something probably noticed closer to, like, you know, during the events of, like, you know, in the, either in the prelude to the Shattering or during the Shattering itself. Vid could be louder. I can turn it up slightly for you guys. Again, though, I do not want to have to be talking over a video more than I already am, so.
Of the spread of the death root, little to no mind, and the measures in place to deal with it were not given the resources to properly be effective in combating its massive infestation of the roots of the great tree that the Erd tree itself had sort of just taken over. And before anybody knew it, there was undead in every catacomb in the lands between, and every graveyard, all because Marika decided that there was no place for death in her order. Now, sure, this could have been a part of Marika's plan, but I don't see how it benefits her. Or maybe this is just the price she had to pay for being able to control death in the way she had for all these eons, sealing it away.
Oh, I don't see how this could benefit her anyway, because it didn't. This wasn't part of the plan. There was no plan. None of this was part of Marika's plan. She's not responsible for this goddamn conspiracy. You think the Black Flames are just from Black Knife Assassins who had part of the Black Knife assassination on the night and did have the proper red Black Flames used against EG? No, as Nobre says, this is not an EG thing. This is apparently just a troll thing. If you use the red Black Flames attacks on trolls, they will instead have the white Black Flame effect. So clearly, this seems to just be an oversight by From Software. Now, how did they not catch that or something? Maybe they did catch it, but they said it was just too much trouble for them to go through and fix it, maybe? Like, who knows? But it seems, the fact that this isn't an EG specific thing, this is just a category thing for trolls, tells me that either A, there's some deep lore explanation for why they use that specific effect, even though it's the other stuff, or B, they just didn't code it that way. That's it. Oh no, he's a great tree guy. I did not catch that. I did not catch that. Did we have a great tree truther?
I don't see how it benefits her. Or maybe this is just the price she had to pay for being able to control death in the way she had for all these eons, sealing it away, only allowing it out when she decides it's necessary through these secret plots. Now, I think there's also a big possibility that Marika is incapable of doing anything about Godwin's infestation, at least currently. Godwin's corpse isn't really something that's killed easily either. They basically tried everything to put his mindless undead remains to rest, but even the best
Miquella did,
individuals like Miquella and the powerful ancient dragon Fortisax were, well, suffice it to say, not enough. Maybe Marika caused irreparable damage by sealing away the Rune of Death. Maybe that's
a fair statement, I think.
Fix, quote unquote, the undead problem is through the Age of the Duskborn ending. But again, speculation for another day. And I also want to go on record and say that I don't believe Marika could easily fix this mess. Although I do think that perhaps restarting a new era with a new lord and her being a new goddess again could possibly allow her the abilities to sort of just sweep all this under the rug. Obviously, pure speculation. Anyway, as far as the current state of the Lands Between went, the rest of the world was going to have to deal with the nasty side effects of this plague. The Rune of Death was now spreading through the Lands Between, fragmenting and essentially just spreading the plague of undead.
The video's not on screen.
Land. Not unlike in Dark Souls, where it became a problem for the people there and the gods. You know, speaking of this whole death blight plague and its unintended or maybe intended consequences, Marika didn't really care much for her dog brother Malekith, judging by how she used and abused him, then essentially tossed the poor mutt aside and abandoned him. I mean, come on, that's what's called animal abuse. I mean, shit,
in fairness, as I've said before, none of this was really Marika's plan, and I think when it comes to breaking the Elden Ring, she was acting emotionally. You know, or I should say impulsively would probably be the better term, right? I think it was just a matter of she broke. Again, she broke. She had a moment of absolute frenzy where she's just like, fuck all of you, I'm gonna just destroy this thing, destroy. Again, this completely destabilizes her own power. Again, breaking the Elden Ring doesn't help her in any regard. Clearly. There's no There's no way that this was going to work out for her in any way, right? Even if you're trying to scheme that, like, oh, in the future, like, again, her scheme at this point is literally, you have to argue, is that she wants to die while also getting the Elden Beast to also die, and so she's going to get herself imprisoned and become essentially like a pawn of the Elden Beast and the True Fingers and all that stuff, has her entire kingdom collapse and go into war, and then maybe has some random, bumfuck Tarnished out there come back, forge a sword that could slay a god, then kill Radagon, and then the Elden Beast with it. It's, again, I understand, again, Malekith's feelings about how he feels like he's completely betrayed by Marika for what she did are very understandable, but I think we need to put this in the context of, Marika's not thinking. She's not like being like, I'm gonna screw you over, Malekith. Granted, you could say that was a care and neglect and that she wasn't thinking about the other people around her. She was ultimately just thinking about herself. And that's where I think there's a fair discussion about her character psychology there.
Very little humanity left in her. It's kind of a big part of the whole being a god thing.
I would disagree. Her being a god is that she has too much humanity.
But how Marika did Malekith was downright cruel. A case of divine animal cruelty, if you will. First, she allowed Ranni to conspire with her brother Rykard to steal the Rune of Death from under Malekith's nose. Then all the blame for its theft was placed squarely on this loyal dog's shoulders. And as his grand punishment for letting the rune be stolen and essentially causing the Knight of Black Knives, he's forced to have the Rune of Death sealed in his blade and to a degree his very being. He was also charged with cleanup duty regarding the spread of the Death Root. Since it was decided that it was his fault the Night of the Black Knives happened, he was tasked with finding and consuming all of the Death Root wherever it appeared. This led to him forming some severe mental problems as well as an order of hunters to assist him in reuniting the fragmented
I like that.
with its missing pieces that were found deep within the individual chunks of Death Root. I always think of Malekith as a goddamn tragedy. I mean, this poor dog, he was only ever loyal to his master. He was known as the bane of the demigods. He put down the Glowmite Queen in her Godskin uprising. He was nothing to scoff at. He did his duty faithfully and got nothing in return besides betrayal and lies. I feel like this is a very GRRM. It's even more fitting,
I think that's fair to say.
On the nose that Malekith
that ultimately
is a
Marika screwed Malekith
subservient
over
to the bitter end, and even
for
in
sure.
his final moments, he spends them asking Marika if this is what it's like to sin. He still just sat there wondering. He dies not knowing why any of this shit even happened and why he was used. It's also kind of heartbreaking when you think about how the beasts were only given this level of humanity, presumably on Marika's behalf, if that statue at Farum Azula is supposed to depict Marika and some wolves. And as we know, the Beastmen were given their intelligence in the form of opposable thumbs by the Greater Will. We don't know why they did this, but it's possible Marika wanted her servants uplifted, or maybe those three wolves are just the wolves in the spirit ashes. It's tough to say. But still, there was a time when these beasts, these dog-like wolf beasts, they didn't have the level.
Wow, this raid is really going far. We're not going all the way back to Farum Azula lore.
Was,
this became a Malekith video real quick.
Maybe even just
no wonder this thing is 50 minutes.
Like Malekith probably did. It's just
we're just going to cover the whole game at this point.
We take dogs' loyalty for granted all the time, but, Marika had just an extreme case of that. She was actively terrible to her pet dog. And I know the game.
Her pet dog, it's her bro.
Like her half brother or her step brother or
it's
something
half bro.
like that. She literally treated him like a dog by withholding crucial information, like a more messed up way.
See, that I agree with.
I would use.
I would definitely say that she probably didn't treat him with enough respect.
I think that might have sounded better in my head.
It's almost like there's a common theme of abandonment throughout the game.
Marika was horrible to Malekith.
Yeah, I can see that.
Now compare that to Ranni and Blythe's dynamic. Yeah, that's a whole different kind of tragedy, but Ranni seemed to at least genuinely care for her software malfunctioning stepbrother / pet dog. Yeah, it may not have turned out well for him in the end, but he remained loyal, and his fate definitely saddened Ranni, who does literally say that she loves him and Iji, so she's certainly capable of a level of compassion that Marika simply doesn't possess anymore. Now that I think about
it, when did she ever
Ranni
possess him? What are we saying? She
a mirror to Marika.
She just doesn't possess empathy anymore. What?
And she also seems like the only one of the Empyreans to behave like a true successor to Marika, even if it's not in the way that she would want. It's not that surprising that one of the endings is Ranni winning. Shit, I think that still might be the most popular ending. I remember when the game first dropped, that was the most achieved ending out of the game. More people helped Ranni than even the basic America ending. So
To be
something
fair,
think
it's
about.
really hard to
I
miss
think they
the
all just
Ranni
wanted
ending.
The Moonlight Greatsword.
The game goes
though,
out of
but
its way
We're going off on a tangent. Let's move on.
to make it easy
So
for you
when
to
it
unlock
comes
it.
to whether or not America was impressed with the outcome of the Night of Black Knives, I'd have to say that I definitely doubt that she ever expected the assassins to kill all of the demigods because of her plans regarding the shattering for the other kids.
Oh boy.
But I do think she probably
conspiracy
expected
gets
better
deeper.
results than she got.
Oh boy.
I think at the very least,
Oh, no.
she wanted all of the Empyreans dead. She knew that Ranni was up to something even if her Empyrean flesh was slain, and that's probably why the Black Knife assassins were watching her allies, waiting for the opportune moment to strike and hopefully get Ranni, or at the very least thwart whatever she was planning.
Nonsense.
In this instance, the Black Knife assassins seem to operate as the hands of Queen Marika in the same way that the Knights Cavalry did for Morgoth. They were his eyes and ears, and his hands.
That's
to
an
strike
interesting
out at people in the
comparison.
dark. Stopping Ranni's plans was probably the best outcome that the Black Knives could hope for, since, well, she wasn't corporeal anymore, so killing her was a bit complicated outside of the spirit-melting frenzy.
Why
flame.
though? Like,
No one wanted to handle that shit, so...
You're saying that
Ranni's
Roddy's
ghost would
essentially
always
has
have
the
gotten
same
away
basic idea as
relatively
America, to
clean,
want to
but
overthrow
they
her
could
own
still
order,
stop
to
her
destabilize
plans.
her own
And
kingdom.
now
Like,
moving
what
on
is
to
this?
Melania, she was a problem whether she liked it or not. Not necessarily because she was an Empyrean, but because of
Okay,
the,
so it is
more
not- it isn't
obvious
just trolls, it
reasons.
is actually
She was
just
a ticking
EG.
time bomb.
Okay,
She
Dobre, that
was,
changes things.
Predictable for now, but once she blooms the third time, America would probably have to 1v1 another goddess, which I imagine is no small thing. And on top of that, even if Melania never got to bloom that third time, she was still in service to perhaps America's biggest threat, Mikola. But perhaps I'm speaking too soon. Maybe America accounted for all of this by bringing back all the Tarnished with the express purpose of hunting the demigods. Seems to sort of make sense to me. I mean, it's entirely possible that Marika did intend for Godfrey to be her lord again because she believed he was the strongest and maybe even cared a bit about him, although
Sure.
that's definitely debatable. But personally,
Of
I
course.
imagine that as far as she was concerned, it didn't really matter who her lord was. If they were strong enough to make it that far, then icing Melania should be a piece of cake. Although I will say, I'm sure Godfrey could have pulled that off, no problem. Anyway, Mikola was arguably the most deadly of her potential replacements and had evaded her assassins using that nonsense liturgical town trap to contain all of them.
It's a trap?
He then had gotten himself kidnapped by Mog,
I-
one of America's edgiest kids who
I
happened to be
would
involved
question
with
that.
another star, the Blood Star, and he was making his own bid for a new dynasty following Marika's. She definitely didn't leave things on good terms there. Although I like to think that she knew Mikola's true plans when he allowed himself to be taken by Mog. I don't think that
What would she
feared
know?
any
She's in
blood or
prison.
anything like that. I don't think
This
she
is all
thought
happening
Mog
while
was gonna
she's, like, freaking
successfully
rotting on a
establish new
crucifix.
dynasty. I think she knew that Mikola was planning on using him to access the Shadow Realm.
Oh
And,
God!
quite
Now
literally
we got
replace her
Mikola's
as the
conspiracy.
new
It was all part of
god.
Mikola's
I
plan.
think Gideon the All
You know, the
Knowing
Hailing
talks a
Tree,
little
that
bit
was just
about
a side
this when
hustle.
you tell him of
It was always
Mikola's
planned that he would
location.
just randomly abandon the
He even
giant
says we're
tree
probably
in
better
order
off
and
if we
faction
just
that he had
kill it
developed
or
with.
destroy it. Now, well, Gideon himself
I thought Marika
ultimately dies
favored
a
Mikola.
coward
Oh
from,
God, there's
misinterpreting
so
the
many
will of
questions
Marika.
I have
He
with
does
this.
have the occasional good insight. He says that the Queen's sorrow must have been justified in reference to finding Mikola's
Yeah, your theory's
cocoon
back on the
in
menu,
Mog's
Sub-Zero.
bloody bedchamber,
Yeah.
which surface level we're supposed to take as her being sad that her young son was kidnapped by the spurned son that she made live in the sewers, and sure, that's understandable, but I think her sorrow is more likely coming from the fact that she knows what Mikola is planning, and more importantly, that he's now outside of her reach.
What?
I mean, that must have been tough. Her crazy assassination plot failed to kill the child.
Is it about
that
because
she
Gideon
likely
says
feared the
Mikola-
most due to his,
Marika made her weak? 'Cause
ability
this
to
is-
compel affection and his naive outlook on trying to fix the world with this forced love that he knew how to pull off.
Are we not considering
I
that maybe
think
Marika
this
doesn't
small
like that all her
fact is
kids are
the
fighting
more
and killing
likely
each
source
other?
of her sorrow, especially considering that Marika was trapped within the Erd Tree by
All for an
Radagon
order she
shortly
doesn't
after
believe in?
shattering the Elden Ring. Her biggest enemy was ultimately herself, or perhaps a part of her.
Or
that
rather,
was
I should say for a god she
compartmentalized
doesn't
after
believe in,
witnessing
you know?
the horrors of what became of her people. A part that was only allowed to resurface when she needed to be treacherous, like seducing Renala and presumably Granny Hornsent's son. You know, at least judging by the old lady's remarks. This darker, sneakier side of America is what I believe became Radagon, and maybe it was exacerbated by the ascending into literal godhood. I mean, becoming a god can have some odd side effects in the writings of George R.R. Martin and the games of Miyazaki. Stuff that one mere mortal wouldn't expect or understand. In this case, some of the attributes of America that were long ignored sort of became the basis of another being, a soul, if you will, or another side of a soul, a shadow soul, maybe. It had long since been repressed, but it was there, hidden deep within America's very being, and this more rigid, order-focused persona would grow stronger and stronger the more she let it out, and it truly did have a mind of its own.
So basically this idea that Radagon always existed within America, but wouldn't appear until much later. That's an interesting notion. I would like to explore that idea.
Over the other. That's why I believe America sought out a severance, if you will, in the form of shattering the Elden Ring and manipulating a bunch of Tarnished to show up and kill the Elden Beast, the living embodiment of order. Maybe the Elden Beast's influence on Radagon is what caused the two to be at odds constantly, but again, that's all just speculation. As always, there's no definitive answers here. I mean, I can only just speculate on what I, put together. As far as her endgame went, though, and despite Gideon's skewed interpretation, Marika's will was not for the Tarnished to fight each other eternally. She did genuinely want a lord.
Was that Marika or Radagon?
Someone like Godfrey, if the man himself was no longer up to the task. When it came right down to it, Marika really didn't seem to care much which individual Tarnished became her lord, seeing as how she blessed the misbegotten blacksmith Hugh with the divine purpose of crafting a weapon capable of slaying a god. When you think about it, Hugh shared a similar curse as the last fire giant. The last fire giant was cursed to live forever and tend the flame, and there's really only one reason for that too. It was because she knew that she would need that flame one day. That's presumably why she kept Melina around. Melina, as a young child, bore a vision of fire, which was a
Why did Marika keep Melina around beyond possibly maternal
love? It was one that she knew she could use way down the road. Maybe. It was sort of an essential part
Maybe there's
of
an argument there.
Grand scheme.
I can see that.
In Hugh's case, his divine purpose was a bit more simple. All he had to do was improve a lucky Tarnished weapon to the point of god slaying and hope that the Tarnished killed a god. Until then, though, he was stuck in the pocket dimension of the Round Table Hold for presumably all eternity. Now, once Marika shattered the Elden Ring, she figured she'd already won. Radagon could try to repair it, but it was too late to fix completely. The demigod children and offspring all claimed pieces of it as their own on their bids to succeed Radagon. And that's exactly what she wanted. She didn't care if all of her kids died and became the ashes from which her new order rose.
Oh boy,
they served as suitable tests for her new lord.
Man, Marika is clearly, she's hardcore, obviously.
To her new lord, whether
she just has a bunch of kids so she can murder them.
Or some other Tarnished.
Go kill each other.
She wanted to do things right this time, and the only things capable of stopping her completely were Ranni and the demon known as Shabriri. Although that being said, the Dung Eater has probably the best form of revenge against her, if you ask me. I mean, basically making the world Hornsent again. But
God, this really is a rant. Now we're all the way over.
America, at least, because she
we're all the way talking about the Dung Eater
God in this new order. This one really ended up a little bit longer than I expected,
oh,
so
boy,
I'll probably
did it.
Wrap it up shortly. But
oh God!
One thing about Marika, one last thing about the Eternal Queen, is that she's filled with secrets, and this is one of those times where you just you simply can't let the mystery be. Much like Nora in The Leftovers or Cooper in Twin Peaks, we got to find answers or at least some kind of reasoning or explanations of why. Even if by design we'll never get a definitive answer anyway.
Sure.
And there's a lot of great mysteries revolving around Marika. You know, what did she steal in the DLC trailer? Why was she two people? Where did the
I am of the perspective that, how'd I put this? I'm of the perspective that a mystery is only a mystery so long as you do not accept the answer. Because there are many things that we consider solved. They aren't mysteries. But for some people, they are, because they consider that those answers aren't right, that there actually must be other or alternative explanations for what they are. And there's some things where you have a billion different explanations for it, and some people are very married to those explanations, and they are convinced that, yeah, no, this is truly... you know, the right answer. I've solved the mystery. But for other people, they may not either agree with that, or maybe they don't know about it, and as far as the public is concerned, it still is a mystery. So in my opinion, when it comes to, like, mysteries and... Oh, right, ran out of power. So my perspective is that when it comes to mysteries and things like that, a mystery is more so a... It's more so a word game, in my humble opinion, over, you know, anything so, you know, definitive or concrete, right? That's how I think it is. And again, ultimately the question is the answer that is presented true? And of course, if you believe in if we are subjective people living in an objective world, then that can be very difficult to say with any certainty, right? You can only see how consistent the explanation is across time. Anyway, let's get to let's finish this up.
Newmans in general come from? How did she end up crucified and pierced by this curious-looking spike? Now, some answers are in fact available. We know her goal was to become God again, a divine do-over sort of thing. We've been here before. Time is a flat circle, that whole spiel. And as for the current situation we see her in when we finally come face to face with the Eternal Queen is, well, she's impaled and crucified. And this was done by herself, or I guess Radagon, for shattering the Elden Ring.
Okay, at least he brings up
Radagon. It was already too late to...
Marika crucified herself. That's going to be a great...
She had, for the most part, outplayed Radagon and the Greater Will, but it cost her well, for lack of a better term, her mobility. She couldn't serve any type of active role.
Her entire plot involves her dying.
But barring a lunar takeover or the literal burning of the world, she would have her win, and that's what makes Marika a Hall of Fame schemer among the FromSoft antagonists like Gwyn in particular, the Lord of Light, or maybe Ishin from Sekiro. Personally, I'd say she's probably operating on a higher level than some of the other iconic schemers of these games like Pontiff, Al, Nashandra, maybe even Aldia. I mean, all of these people are extremely competent and successful.
Okay! You are not going to put the words competent and Nashandra in the same sentence. What are we doing here? Even Aldia, okay, I'll give some puntos for Aldia if you want to say he's competent. Like I could have like some, like I would be like, is he really though? I don't know. But like, Nashandra, are you kidding me? Has to be the most incompetent character in the Dark Souls franchise, at least for the villains. Like, what are we doing? I should have taken Royce. Oh well. It's fine. Okay, let's get back to this though. Let's finish this.
But Gwyn and Marika are on a different playing field, you know, which makes sense given that they're gods.
Okay, Gwyn. Okay, good. He at least, thank goodness, or at least putting Gwyn in Marika tier, because I can buy that.
Crumbling, she still had a 50-50 shot of winning as far as the different endings go. 3 of them are in her favor, and 3 of them not so much. So to say she had a guaranteed win is, well, a far cry from the truth. It was honestly all down to what could best be described as a cosmic coin toss. And again, I think the biggest way to spite Marika, if that is your inclination, would probably be to do the Dung Eater ending, the Age of the Curse-Born. Give her an unending reminder of the Hornsent people and what she did to them and what was done to her people. But I'm pretty sure that's everything I wanted to cover this time around, although there's still probably some stuff I forgot to mention, but I guess that's the nature of things. But I believe that was everything I wanted to cover from my notes. Now, as always, I hope it was at least somewhat amusing or entertaining, and if you liked the video, please like it. If you disliked it, please dislike it. And if you like hearing me ramble on about the various lore topics and the occasional TV show or movie that catches my mind, please consider subscribing. We've got plenty of that, more to go. And if you feel like supporting the channel for any reason, I've got a Patreon that I hopefully will remember to link in the description. And I'm also setting up channel memberships because I know not everybody trusts Patreon for good reason. I mean, the less websites you trust, the better. But that's enough rambling. Let's have our outro and then the coveted final thoughts section.
There we go. So, damn, I can't. I wish I could pin stuff from. What the frick am I listening? What?
I should change this to the apologizing for delays section because, yeah, sorry about the long delay for this video. It sort of went an overhaul. It was originally just going to be about the Black Knives, but I wanted to talk also about America. I found myself inspired midway through.
Yeah, I can see you were definitely
Black
inspired,
Knife
that's
one.
for sure.
That I just decided to make.
Man
this
cooked,
a
he burned the kitchen.
America's, schemes video. Now that doesn't mean that the Black Knives won't get their own shorter standalone video. Same with the Glowmite Queen.
Why not? You seem to have covered half the game lore of the vid.
A good amount of arguments that be had about whether or not Melina is or isn't the Glowmite Queen.
Oh boy,
and
we're
that'd
gonna.
be fun to cover.
That's gonna be a fun. That's gonna
But
be
I've
a
also
fun
got
can of
that
worms you want to
prospect
open, huh?
coming. I've got There's also this video I've been wanting to finish up for like a year now about True Detective Season 2 and how it's often, you know, maligned by many people, but I think that's a little unfair. It's actually, you know, my favorite season. It's obviously far more flawed than Season 1, but there's just
I'll be honest,
about
I have no interest. Okay, we're gonna end the video here. I'm gonna drop that a like. I'm gonna include the link down in the description for the video after this. I need to get into the habit of we're gonna get into the habit of probably doing that, so that way you guys can actually enjoy. Unfortunately, I can't. This is the best I can do, is give you guys a link to the video here directly, right? That was a lot, chat. That was a whole heckin' a lot. One, again, it's a ramble video, so I'm not gonna be too harsh on the fact that, like, as he admitted, like, he was ranting and rambling. It wasn't like this organized thing, right? Like, it is what it is. That said, I will criticize and say that a lot of this just wasn't thought through. Right? It needs more research. Also, Nobre, did you do more tests? What did you find with those? What's the scoop? Is it like, is there anything where, is it all like they always do the red-black flames with the trolls, or is it sometimes they're doing the white-black and sometimes they're not? Also, I should probably change the chat. I should have done this before the stream to live chat so I can just see everything, not have to worry about like top chats or whatever the hell. Alright. Oh, there you are. Alright, so where do we begin? I think when we got to the start of the rant, I was like, okay, this is very understandable. We're getting into it. Then we got into the main thesis, which was him discussing the Night of the Black Knives and how America is actually the one behind everything. It's not Ronnie. Ronnie's not the mastermind. The self-professed mastermind is not, in fact, part of it. You see, no, that's not how conspiracies work. There has to be a mastermind who's actually puppeteering the mastermind. Yes, yes, yes! And I'll be honest, it sounds patently ridiculous. It's clear that this wasn't thought through. There's, like, just blatant contradictions in just, like, following any of the logic to any of this. It's just sort of jumping from point to point without actually considering, like, you know, is this actually feasible? Could this actually be true? Does this actually work? Oh, no, that's not what I wanted. I should have gone this way. Gargoyle Black Sword has white-black flame effect pop up in every enemy when struck with its, War Ash? Is the Ash of War? Yeah, okay. Okay, so there are cases where it is, in fact, doing the white and black flame. Okay, yeah, then it's probably an oversight with EG. There must be something going wrong where, if I had to guess, they didn't actually check closely in-game, or at least the person who knew that it was supposed to be red-black flames of the assassins didn't check. They probably just put the effect thing on there, like, in, like, I don't know, the editor or whatever, right? And then, like, they just left it for QA testers to do it, and QA testers obviously aren't going to report back because they're just going to see, like, you know, random flame effect or whatever. And I think that would be my assessment, based on my limited knowledge about, like, coding and game development and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm not going to pay what EG has going for him any that much mind. I should grab the quartz while we're here. The part 1 video I sent on the Elden Ring lore conclusively explained has 23-ish minutes too, Loki. So you guys got 20 minutes. I think that'll be next time, chat. I think we'll do a group of them together then. Because I'll be honest, that was a long one. It was, you know, paying attention to, like, every single point that he's trying to make in a ramble video was exhausting. And, like, it dragged us all over the place. I felt like I was torn this way and that. Like, oh boy. Maybe have a buffer before Firelink Conspiracy stuff. If it's called Firelink Conspiracy, then I'm scared. Because there's only one Firelinking Conspiracy, and it's the fact that the fire linking was, you know, all Gwyn's fault. Like, there's really nothing There's really nothing too conspiratorial beyond that. But yeah, so this was cool. I was able to do it. That caused no problems with me playing the game. It doesn't seem to have affected the video. I was able to play smoothly. It doesn't seem to have affected the stream at all. You guys were able to watch it, I seem, smoothly. And I think we've got audios, more or less, you know, settled out. So that's cool. Watch this Dark Souls stuff. Oh, God, guys. Guys, are you trying to kill me? Are you trying to just, like, murder me in my crib? Just smother me down? Take a pillow and just smash it right down my throat? Like, it sounds like you guys just want me to absolutely go ballistic. I feel like they would have caught on that detail, but I don't know. The fact they removed the fire effect in Morgoth's cutscene was such a small detail that nobody pointed out. Here's the thing. Morgoth's a major boss. EG's situation is a completely optional scene that many players may not even actually witness for themselves. Right? It's a completely different when it's literally one of the, like... Oh, whoopsie. I didn't want to do this. Whoopsie. It's different when it's literally, like, Morgoth, a boss who's, like, at the center, has a cutscene dedicated to him. It's front and center. Like, that's the thing that everything's... It's going to be on all the social media. Like, From Software's going to see that. So I would not even consider that in the same realm for consideration. Firelink Conspiracy argues Firelink is done by Velka to drain the sun and end the day/age of fire. Okay, I'm gonna have to prepare myself then, clearly, if that's what you guys want me to watch. Can I smother you with a pillow? No, I am. Trying to force you to make cosmology by the terrible understanding of the common people. Ah, I see how it is. You guys just, you're like, Loki, please do the cosmology. And I'm like, no, chat, it is so annoying to have to do all the cosmology stuff. I would so prefer if I did it and I could actually just enjoy, you know, while having someone else do it while I just do all the fun history stuff. But no, you're like, Loki has to do it. Or we'll make him watch a bunch of lore videos that'll piss him off so bad that he will be forced, I say, in order to doing it. That's your plan. I see through all of you, chat. I love this reaction. Thank you, Loki. Well, you're welcome, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it. This was a fun little test. It surprisingly went smoothly. I only had one of you guys say you wanted a little louder. None of you complained about it being too loud now. So clearly that wasn't such a bad change. For a second, I thought that was one of my beacons things. I'm like, when the hell did I put a beacon there? Videos like this are why you doing basic Elden Ring stuff would be useful, even if the translation is better. People just come up with some wacky ideas, man. Here's the thing. I am okay with people coming up with those wacky ideas, right? Like, obviously, I think they're wrong. I think they're absurd. I think they clearly were not well thought through. But I'm not here to police what everyone in the world thinks about Dark Souls lore in the end, right? My desire is purely to simply supply people with the information so that way they can make a proper assessment, right? Damn, I want to not sleep so it can be day, right? Okay, I'm gonna get a little bit more quartz. But yeah, I get it, right? Like, if I'm not gonna, like, there's very much that temptation to be like, if I'm not gonna do it, who will? I think there have been people who've done some good work on at least trying to tackle it. Like, I know Crunchy's done some videos trying to at least, like, you know, work through his thoughts on the topic. But yeah, more needs to be done. And I'm going to feel more confident maybe about doing it myself as I work myself through more of the history and stuff. Because, like I said, some of this stuff, like, even putting aside any cosmology questions, like, some of this is just... I think we would agree very much on saying cosmological facts and a lot of this stuff, and still, these are some absurd conclusions to be reaching, for sure. See, I said people value your opinions. I don't know. I don't know, chat. Maybe they do. I don't know. Maybe I'll feel confident about that if I was like, like a million plus channel. Even then, I'd be like, listen, there's 8 billion people in the world, and probably like at least 20 million From Software fans. I don't know. There we go. I mean, one could lick your face. Please do not lick the Loki face. Anyway, so where are we? I would say as far as the video is, the video is concerned in terms of like its overall analysis, I would say that the rant really goes off the rails when we get into the conspiracy stuff. But again, I feel like the beginning stuff, when we're talking about like, you know, America, the backstory, the Horns, I don't think all of the stuff being said is completely absurd, or at the very least isn't warranting more discussion. Maybe my opinions will change as I like harden my stance on my own thoughts on this stuff, but I think I'm still very, again, like I've said before, I feel like I am barely a neophyte when it comes to Elden Ring lore. There is so much still that I need to go through, I feel, before I feel confident about a lot of things. So I'm willing to kind of bend on some of this stuff. Is there any more quartz there? Just any little bit more quartz I can grab. Confuse the masses, who needs Loki's guy. Again, and that's fine with people. Again, ultimately, I think I am very much of a perspective that, you know what, there's always going to be quote-unquote misinformation out there. Ultimately, what you want to do is have more good information to counteract bad, right? And as you can, and I think generally speaking, especially when you look at some of the larger content creators and stuff, there's more good than bad, I think, when you on the more popular level. Obviously, there's always going to, though, this is always going to be, by its nature, a diffusive and divisive community. And I'm okay with that. Pro is high. I wouldn't say he's high, per se, right? I just think that he does, in fact, go all the way into Crazy Town. Because he's saying things that should just be patently absurd to his own ears. But it's clear that he has not critically thought about any of this. And, like, how does any of this make sense or work? Like, it's very surface level what the analysis is there. And again, it's a rant video, it's a research, you know, it's done research, but clearly it's not going to be that well thought out or doing so. Like, again, anything you're going through live off the cuff or whatever, which I assume is how he's doing this, is like, you know, he has his ideas and collections and stuff, maybe he has some bullet points, but, you know, he's basically kind of just, you know, he's rambling, right, like I do. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to forget things. You're going to, you know, throw things in that you didn't originally plan, and that could derail what your thoughts are. Like, I'm not going to hold him too hard for this, right? If this was an analysis video, I like a full-blown analysis video, which sometimes it bleeds into, which I will criticize. This is a parry where it's like, okay, clearly he's trying to, you know, go through facts or whatever. He's not just trying to, you know, summarize his thoughts or go through the history or whatever. Like, sometimes he's really trying to go into kind of, like, prove his points or whatever, and it's like, there's other points where he just sort of, like, you know, we're supposed to just take it prima facie, and I'm just like, I'm sorry, no. I need you to kind of help lead me through this to understand where you're coming from on this stuff, because some of this stuff just sounds like bonkers. No, I think he's literally high when he makes his vids. That's what the weird noise at the end of the video is. Oh, you think that's actually that? I thought that was just some weird, like, you know, edgy, sound error or whatever to help do a transition. Yeah, I much prefer analysis videos because the creators have to at least go to the trouble of like reading over their own work and being like, okay, does this make sense or whatever? And again, there'll be disagreements. Sometimes people aren't always going to be perfectly logical or what have you, right? This is why this is why I've always promoted other content creators and stuff like Smotown's taking the lead on this, right? If you are confident about your own conclusions, then put money where your mouth is and come out with like a book or something like that, you know, like really kind of put your thoughts on the line there, where like, okay, you want to try to when you want to sell something to someone, you really have to go through and make sure, like, I'm trying to give you a quality product. I have to make sure I look through that this makes sense to me, that I'm not going to give you these patent absurdities. Again, not everyone's going to necessarily always agree with everything in any form of media they have. But when you have something like that, you know, you have skin in the game, and it's very important to you that for both your reputation and your finances, that you get this right. You can't hit that close to the mic, maybe, I don't know. Again, I'm not familiar enough with drugs in order to say that for certain, right? If it was like, if we had like a watching him visually or whatever, I could probably see the signs, but like with it's just a voice and some audio stuff, like, I don't know. Scared the shit out of me. Yeah, for me, I was just like, what the hell is that? Yeah, it was a bong rip outro. Anyway, overall, I think that it goes a bit off the rails as we like progress past the first 25%. But overall, I you know, again, it's a rant video, so I think as far as like the production quality is concerned, it's good. Obviously, I think a huge chunk of it is nonsense. Again, if this was a video that was originally for the Black Knives and all the other stuff about America's backstory and stuff was kind of tacked on, and then we go into stuff like, you know, Malekith and all these things, like... It would have benefited from being a more focused video, I think, right? Even as a rant, I think you could have definitely done smaller pieces and then just referred back to other parts of the video and things like that. But as far as, like, a test is concerned, I think this was good. I got an idea now of how I feel about longer, hour-long, like, videos and things like that, especially when they are ones that are going to provoke quite the amount of reactions from me. I felt pretty good with it being normal speed. I had no issue with that. If it was, like, if I wasn't playing a game and stuff, I'd probably put it on ×2 speed, because I would be able to, you know, put more, you know, my processing power to that. But, I think between, like, chat and the game... and the video itself, I think normal speed is going to be fine. And hopefully there's not going to be any complaints about, you know, me not, you know, me, like, you know, reacting to other people's content, because, I don't know, I'm playing the game, I'm commenting, I am making sure that it's not even, like, taking up that much of the, you know, it's not taking up, like, huge chunks of the screen, and I'm going to be linking the videos and stuff, so hopefully we're not going to, you know, miff any content creators where they're like, oh my god, you're stepping on you're stepping on my content, you're stealing my copyright, you know? I'm hoping we're not going to cause any trouble like that. Because I feel this is all fair use. Very entertaining. Well, I'm glad it was at least entertaining, if nothing else. First words are Melina is Marika is Glow-Eyed Queen. Melina is Marika is Glow-Eyed Queen. Oh, boy. God, conspiracy stuff. Oh, God. You guys are really... Listen, I at least believe half of that. Melina is Marika, though. That's something. Like, I'll be honest, I can see where the argument would come from, and I would love to at least hear it out. Obviously, I don't buy it. I think some of the connections would be a little out there, but, like, I could see, like, where, like, how you could construe things to come to that conclusion. Yeah, this was a very good testing, I think. I think it tests, like, my limits and what I'm willing to do, what you guys are willing to do. Because I had to pausing, chat. There were certain points where I'm like, okay, I can't just let the video go on and stand. I'm talking over this person. They're moving on to different points. Like, I have to pause. That naturally is going to extend the length of a video. And that by the nature of the length of the stream. So, now I have an idea that if I'm going to do, like, an hour-long stream or something like that, I'm going to either have to really strap in for a really long stream and, like, maybe take breaks in between where I'm like, okay, guys, we're gonna take the 15-minute, you know, restroom break where I'm just gonna lay my head down, like, just be like, don't think about anything, just clear your mind, just try to refresh before you have to listen to this insanity and try to, like, make sense of it again. Like, I swear, you're gonna make me adopt the Frenzy Flame, you people. Yay. I didn't link it yet. I linked a nice Smotown video about your second favorite lore. Well, you know what? That's going to be a nice one to watch, I'm sure. Eventually, we'll get to Smotown and stuff. But I'm glad. Again, in the future, guys, drop on the Discord in suggestions, videos and stuff that you would like me to react and stuff to. Because now when we do screenshot content and stuff like that, I think we're going to do something where we're going to at least put, like, a short video or something like that. And then if we're doing, like, a casual thing where I just want to mostly disconnect, we might do a reaction or whatever. Not every stream. I think there's going to be streams where I just want to, like, you know, I don't want to have my work brain on. I just want to do dumb Subnautica stuff or something like that. Or, obviously, I want to play a new game and I want to be engaged in the story and the experience of the game, like a Silent Hill type thing, right? But I think for when we're doing, like, these side streams, we can now actually put on music without me lagging my system, put on videos without me lagging the stream or whatever for you guys. Like, we could do all that, and it feels good. Like, I don't feel any drops or anything, which I'm very happy about. America's secret identities are like the no homers club. You're allowed just the one, in my opinion. Yeah, this is a problem I always have with people when they're trying to come up with alternate identities or something. Like, for example, but shortly before I came out with my Rosaria analysis, I was actually willing to advocate for Rosaria as Guinevere, and of course Guinevere as the Clomite Queen, right? Now the problem was I did my Aldrich analysis and I finished that and posted that, and I was like, I looked at that, I looked at the timeline, I looked at the data, and I then re-examined the Rosaria data. I'm like, okay, this isn't working. It has to be one or the other, right? And it's very clear based on the evidence that Guinevere is the Queen of Lothric, so Rosaria definitely cannot be Guinevere by itself. And then when I re-examined some of the evidence for why I was thinking that issue, I was like, you know what? I misinterpreted this. I misread this. I did not, this wasn't really the points I thought it was making, right? And I'm like, okay. And then I ended up coming out with my final Rosaria analysis, which again, I'm very happy with. There's the temptation though that you want to make several characters who have their own names and identities and say like Velka is everyone, right? Like there's always a theory where like, you know, Velka is like she's a witch of Izalith, or she is Izalith, or she's Gwyn's wife, and like Velka is somehow everyone and everything, right? And obviously, this can't all be true, but some content creators will just jump to that as if it can be true. It's like, no, stay to your lane. Which one do you think is most likely if you think Velka is anybody? Obviously, I make my point in Dark Souls 2 where I'm like, Velka is Keitha. Velka might also be Nar Alma, but not in the case where, you know, Nar Alma's a real person and, like, he and Velka are, same identity, but more so, Nar Alma's some imaginary god that Velka more or less kind of, like, assumes the actions of helping out. But Keitha is the only one where it's actually just Velka going by a different name, right? Like that would be where I would draw the line and stuff there. So like, I think a lot of people really want a lot of characters to be a bunch of different other characters in order to make sense of stuff, and I don't always think that the evidence supports that. Have you ever heard that Grave Lord Nito's Allfather Lloyd? Oh god, please no. Please, by all that is holy. And again, I think one point that people do have to point out is that you have to come up with an explanation for why the characters who have clearly different names, different established names, are somehow the same person still then, right? Not because people can't have alternate identities, but, you know, it's not like just someone's decided, you know, I'm Keitha today. Right? Like, obviously, there's the idea that, different lands, people misremember the gods. It's like, okay, Velka's like, okay, they call me Keitha here, fine. I'll go with that Keitha identity, cultivate that, right? Nar Alma, okay, well, I guess I'll just use this Nar Alma figure for my own purposes. Like, that's fine. Rosaria is clearly Marika, you damn straight. Now we know why Marika had so many kids, chat. Oh my fucking god. No! Oh! God, I felt dirty saying that. It makes things worse to say they're all the same person, yeah. That's why, again, you have to be very careful. I don't think it's wrong to say that, obviously, by some of my own stances. But I think you have to have reasons and good explanations for why. And I think a lot of people kind of just think about, this named character, and they try to, like, make connections with that, with the first getting to the fundamental question of, okay, well, why do they have different names in the first place? Why are they depicted, say, significantly differently? Like, obviously, with Nar Alma being a man, and clearly, and Velka being, well, not. Like I said, I think the Nar Alma thing is more so incidental with Velka. I don't think it's a major thing. I think it's mostly just, there's a false, not real god that people do in fact worship and do so, and Velka will sometimes give backing or supplying to that god for people because, the people who are in the Nar Alma cult, at least on occasion, line up with Velka's own interests or with her past behavior. Velka is Soldier of Godric. Anyway, so I think we're gonna end things here, chat. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you enjoyed the quality of the content and stuff like that in terms of, like, at least the visuals and the audio side. Again, there's always more rooms for improvement and adjustment. I turned off my filters for this one because apparently that was doing bad, even though last time we were doing the filters it was good. Maybe it's gonna be a case-by-case thing. We'll see. We'll see. But again, thank all of you for who stayed with me and commented and listened and, shit posted in the chat and all that stuff. I appreciate you. I love you. Please, if you guys like this, I appreciate a like. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. So that way I can at least, have an idea of, like, do you guys want this content or not? Do you want more from me on this crap, right? Obviously, I'm doing this on the side of me coming out with my own content and everything, so I would hope, my hope is that you guys will, stick with me for, as I try to work through, like, you know, listening to other people's lore content while also, of course, developing my own content for the website, and who knows, maybe more. Anyway, that's where we're gonna call it, though, so thanks so much, everybody. Be safe.